Okay. Welcome everyone to the ANC 6E October meeting. We're going to let some people filter in for a minute before we get started. Hope everyone's staying warm on this chilly, damp evening. Okay, people are flowing in. Nice.
Hooray.
We're popular tonight.
Maybe due to my last post. Not even in my area.
Maybe so.
Mhm.
Okay, we have a hand up.
That's Kevin.
Kevin.
Can you see if that's Kevin?
Okay. Is he coming through?
Well, can you ask him if that's him?
You need the Samsung?
Yeah,
No.
We're just gonna have to promote him.
I think we'll find out.
Okay, we're just getting started here, everyone. Thanks for your patience as we get started. Just want to make sure we have everyone logged in who need to be here.
No. Sorry.
Let's see, is he moving over? Okay, Kevin, is that you?
Yeah, this me.
Yeah, it's Kevin.
Okay. All right, let's go ahead and get started. I call this meeting of the ANC 6E to order. Mr. Secretary, would you please start the roll call?
Yeah, 6E01,
Present.
6E02, present, 6E03, 6E04,
Here.
6E05,
Present.
6E06, 6E07.
Present.
We have 5 commissioners present. We have a quorum.
And so, Michael, we should say something about 6E03.
603.
No, we're talking about Frank, Kevin.
Oh,
Commissioner Niagara, why don't you go for it?
So for any constituents who are on for 6E03, that is Commissioner Wiggins' area. Commissioner Wiggins had to resign last week, but it was a good thing. It was all very positive. He got a promotion, so he is not only no longer in the neighborhood, he's no longer in the area. So it's all very positive. But that seat, well, will be 2G, whatever it'll be, will be filled in January. So we'll be without Frank till January. So, but if, of course, if any of his constituents are on the call, you're welcome to reach out to any of us for assistance.
Okay, thank you for that
Mhm.
important announcement. The next step, item 2, is approval of the agenda. I did receive a notice that the agenda as published listed the incorrect date for the next meeting, so we have updated that. We'll get to it when we get to item 21, but I have updated that with the correct date. Does anyone else have any edits or items to add to the agenda for this evening? And hearing none, can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
I move to approve the agenda for October 4th.
A second.
All right, moved and seconded. All in favor, vote by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Kevin, did we get you voting on that? There we go. We got 5 out of 5. Thank you, everyone. And the next item is approval of the minutes. The minutes have been circulated and edits have been sent to our recording secretary, who's been maintaining our minutes for us. Does anyone have any additional comments or feedback on the minutes? And seeing none, can I get a motion to approve the minutes?
I move to approve the minutes for September 2022.
I'll second.
Second. Okay, moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, and we got Kevin there. Thank you so much. Okay. And item 4 is election of the treasurer. As Rochelle had noted, we have lost our treasurer, who was also our commissioner for 6E03, and we are going to have to have a new one. So I would like to nominate Rochelle Nigro, Commissioner Nigro, as the treasurer for the rest of the 2022 term. Are there any other nominations? And hearing none, let's go ahead and take a vote on Commissioner Nigro acting as treasurer for the rest of the calendar year and for the rest of the ANC term. Vote by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, I think we got Kevin on that.
Reluctant.
Aye.
Okay. There we go. We now have a new treasurer. Congratulations, Commissioner Nigro, and
And I
thank
will-
you for your continued service.
I will do my best to figure everything out. We'll have a light evening this evening with only checks approvals, because before I got to get involved in all this again. So
Sure. And before we move too far forward, Commissioner Lopez, would you like to make an announcement about tonight's date?
Oh, yes. So the ANC, I think collectively, we want to observe that tonight is Yom Kippur, one of the Jewish high holidays. And we regret, I think that we as an ANC regret having scheduled this meeting in conflict with that holiday. And so our apologies to any of our residents or other community members that were unable to join this evening due to that conflict. And we will resolve to do better about scheduling in the future.
I appreciate that statement. Thank you very much. So moving on to the next item, item 5, PSA report for MPD 1D. That's Captain Justin Roth. Can we unmute Captain Roth? There he is. Welcome, Captain Roth.
Hey, how are you? Can everybody hear me?
Yes, so you're coming through just fine. Thanks for joining us this evening.
Hey, commissioners. Good evening. I'm sorry I'm out of pocket tonight, working in my wife's office. So please excuse my background. I just wanted to stop by and say hello. I think this is the first 6E meeting that I've been able to attend. I think Lieutenant Donegan might have did the last one. So I just want to give you guys some updates on what's going on in 1D. There's been a lot of shakeups with personnel. So myself, I'm new. I got there in June. Captain Kevin Harding, he took over Sector 3. He got there in June. And we got at least one new, well, we had a couple new lieutenants, but they have since moved on already. And we got a new one, Lieutenant Nicely. He's actually working tonight, so he wasn't able to jump on. But so those are the changes that are kind of taking place on the 1D side in Sector 1. But real quick, I won't waste any of your time. For the last 30 days, this 30 days compared to last year's 30 days, we're looking pretty good. Violent crime is down 50%, and property crime is down 20% compared to this time last year. So an overall 24% decrease. There were 3 violent crimes that occurred within the last 30 days. And I want to pull those up for you so I can tell you about them. So there was a robbery, it was a force and violence, where the suspect, it was in the 1000 block of 5th Street Northwest. The suspect approached the complainant, grabbed her cell phone, threw it across the street, and then ran across the street, picked the cell phone up and ran away with her cell phone. So that was recorded as robbery, force and violence. We just have a lookout for, it's pretty generic, just a black male, 20 to 30 years of age. There was a robbery pickpocket that occurred on October 1st on the 400 block of K Street Northwest. That someone was trying to get into their building, use their key fob. They stuck their cell phone in their back pocket. young man, juvenile, came by, snatched his cell phone out of his back pocket, jumped into a car and fled. We were able to track the cell phone up to the 1200 block of North Capitol over at Tyler House. Officers went up there and they ended up making a couple of arrests. So they got they locked the one juvenile up for the robbery. I think they locked another individual up for unauthorized use of a vehicle. They were inside of a white Honda Pilot that was reported carjacked out of Montgomery County. So Montgomery County is looking into maybe closing out their carjacking. So that one was a pretty good case. And then on Sunday, October 2nd, we did have a homicide in the 1200 block of North Capitol Street up in the Tyler House. This appears to be targeted to that specific individual. From what I've been able to gather is he's not from the area, he was there visiting a friend when he was shot. So we have a lookout for a vehicle. I apologize, I don't have it right here in front of me, and I don't want to go searching for it, wasting your time. But we have that lookout. It's being pushed out to the officers. It's been pushed out citywide, so I think we have a pretty high solvability factor. So I would assume that this will be closed relatively quickly. And like I said, there doesn't appear to be any danger or anything outside of that. It definitely did appear to be targeted. So really what I want to talk about is the motor vehicle thefts. So we've been having a robbery motor vehicle theft problem. They're trending down, maybe not so much in 6E, but just in the first district as a whole, really around the Chinatown area. We're making a lot of arrests so that, the officers are out there. I think our deployment is pretty kind of spot on. So, when these offenses are occurring, the officers are kind of Johnny on the spot and stopping people and making good lockups. So, but we need some help with the motor vehicle thefts. Relatively shortly, I'm going to be getting with the bids to push out. We have QR codes, which when the officers come in, they can scan the QR code and do a business check inside the businesses. So we're trying to get that put inside the businesses, but also an anti-theft flyer. It's just a little flyer reminding people not to leave their cars running. You'd be surprised how many times people double park, leave their cars running with the doors unlocked, run inside to grab food or make a pickup. A lot of delivery drivers. And then they come back out and their car is gone. And then that car is used later on throughout the city or PG County or Montgomery County to commit other offenses. So we're trying to really combat that. And I say those things because our robberies are coming down, our motor vehicle thefts are coming down, but we are still up for the year and we're trying to drive those numbers down and finish out the year strong. So that's, just if you order Uber Eats or something, just make sure you tell your delivery driver, hey, don't leave your car running outside because it's not going to be there when you get back. So that's really it. I guess I should have given you a little background about me. I was promoted to captain in June. I've been with the department for 14 years. I spent the majority of my career in the 6th district, east of the river. I was an officer there. Was a sergeant in the 4th district briefly for 3-4 years. And I was a lieutenant back in the 6th district. And then most recently I got promoted to captain and sent to the 1st district. So I'm happy to be here. I'm still getting my feet underneath me, still trying to figure it all out. This is a completely different district from what I'm used to. But so far we've been doing pretty good. I think when I took over the sector, there was a 40% crime increase. Right now, I think we're sitting at a 29% increase. So over the last 3 months, we've been able to drive it down 11%. So, I'm looking forward to hopefully over the next couple of months, driving it down even further. So just bear with me. And if you guys have any questions or any concerns, you can email me. My email is Justin, JUSTIN.Roth, ROTH @dc.gov. I work the midnight shift. So I'm probably not going to be the easiest to get a hold of by phone, but I'm pretty responsive over email, and I'll try to get back to you as soon as I can. If anybody has anything that's pressing right now that I can try to start working on right now, just please let me know. Or if you don't feel comfortable, you can shoot me an email.
Thank you for that update, and welcome to 6E, and congratulations on your promotion.
Thank you.
Do we have any comments from commissioners?
Hey, I've got a question. Hey, this is Patrick Parlay. I represent 6005, which is Mount Vernon Triangle. One of the big areas of concern that I hear a lot about from constituents lately is the 7-Eleven on K Street. And I was wondering if you could, for the benefit of the people on the line, just talk in general terms about how and if MPD is partnering with the 7-Eleven to address some of the concerns in that store. We had them on at last month's meeting and they talked a little bit about that partnership, but I'd love to hear it from your standpoint. And any sort of things that are up and coming. I often see an MPD police car parked outside of the 7-Eleven, but I'm just wondering if there's anything, if there are any more efficiencies or anything else we can sort of enable in that area. Thanks.
Yeah, so I know that's been a bit of a problem. I know they have internal security and really it's a private business. So as far as MPD is concerned, obviously, if we get calls there, then yes, we'll respond. We try to clear some of the front sometimes, but we're really kind of prohibited from moving people along, right? There is no loitering laws in the district. So a lot of the calls that we get are for loitering in front of the 7-Eleven. And there's just really not much we can do as far as other than just like contacting some of the people out there. I think Kenyatta, I was supposed to get with him. And I think the overall manager of the 7-Elevens was supposed to be on the next bid meeting. If I'm not mistaken, I may have missed that. I don't think so though, but so they were going to talk about that. I know that they had asked for some calls for service, like how many times they had called over there, to see if maybe it's like a nuisance property at this point. So I know that there are some things that are working, but as far as MPD is concerned, we'll continue to respond for calls. We'll try to keep the front clear. But I know that, the homelessness in the area is becoming a problem. And then from what I'm hearing from the bids, it's just that some of the migrants being dropped off are starting to fill the shelters, and it's kind of pushing the people experiencing homelessness out of the shelters, or they're not showing up to the shelter in time to, I guess, get a bed, and then they're trying to fend for themselves. So I know that we did respond up there the other night that they had started a fire in like a can in front of the 7-Eleven. So we'll respond to those types of things. But as far as enforcing like what goes on inside of the store, like that's just probably not going to happen. I mean, obviously, if it's a crime, we'll deal with it, but they have their own security guards and stuff like that to deal with that.
Commissioner Rogers,
Sorry.
about 1:15 or 2:45 last night, well, I would say this morning, there was some rapid gunfire. I don't know if y'all got that on y'all radar, because I didn't hear no police come into the area, but I did hear the shots. So,
yes, there was. I think we did have a unlawful discharge where I think a vehicle was struck. I think it was in the 100 block of K, maybe.
yeah, around Fresco, it was probably about 6 shots went off.
Yeah, so there was a vehicle, I think, that was struck by some gunfire. I don't have a good lookout for anybody that was doing the shooting up there, but there were no injuries. But like I said, the vehicle was struck.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks so much. And also, I'm noting that Commissioner Blackson was on the other side, and I'm moving her over now as a panelist. And this is, and 1D is part of her constituency, so I just want to see if she has a chance. Commissioner Blackson, welcome to the call.
Good evening. Sorry that I'm tardy.
No worries. We're about to say goodbye to Captain Roth from 1D. Do you have any questions for MPD? Commissioner Blackson? Okay. Sounds like we don't. Thank you very much for coming out this evening. I'm glad you're here, and we will be moving on to the next item. See you next time.
Thank you.
Okay, now let's bring over Captain Moore. Welcome, Captain Moore.
Hey, how's it going?
Good, how are you? Welcome.
All right, thank you, thank you. Right, I'm new as well to 3D. So I'll give you my story up front, I guess. I have 23 and a half years on. I started at 5D as an officer, went to 4D as a sergeant, was a 3D here as a lieutenant, then went to 5D as a captain. And I'm still a captain, but they moved me back here to 3D 4 years later. So I got about 19 months left. So here I am finishing up at 3D in 6E. So here we go. So bear with me as I'm getting to know 3D. Again, because 4 years, a lot has changed. So I'll go over some of these crime stats real quick. Basically, of course, crime is up all over the city, the 3rd district, and 6E included. Robberies are a big thing in our area here. Although the last 30 days they have been down. Knock on wood. I hate to say that, but yeah. So we're working on robberies mostly. Burglaries are up the past 30 days. As well. So, I'll go into that. But overall, year to date in, PSA 308, which is most of 6E. 6E goes a little bit into 307 and a little sliver into 306 as well. But year to date, violent crimes down 7% and property crimes down 11%. But, homicides, of course, are way up in PSA 308 there. We've had 5 so far this year. And robberies are up 16%. And motor vehicle thefts, just like Captain Roth was talking about, is an issue over here as well. So I'll start off with the last homicide we had on September 9th, 1313 5th Street. We have an adult male who was found shot in the head. He is from this area, so it looks like he was definitely targeted. And that case is still open. I don't have any suspect information or anything on that. Moving on to robberies. We had a robbery, force, and violence on September 12th. At 442 N Nora Street, where suspects approached the victim and stole a cell phone. This was a student, I believe, leaving Dunbar at the time. And the 3 suspects also appear to be teenagers. In that case, they're still out there. We had a robbery knife on the 26th of September. This is one where the suspect approached the victim, produced a pocket knife, didn't really use the pocket knife, but brandished it. Ended up stealing about $80 US currency there. That's at 1520 Marion Street, 1520 Marion. And that case is open. We had another robbery on September 30th at 1811 Wiltberger. That's on the very top of 6E there, where we had the victim was walking to his work truck when he was approached by a suspect with a handgun and demanded his property. He stole an Apple iPad, a wallet, and there were 2 suspects in that case. There was another individual that came up. They're both Black males around 20, 25 years of age. And this is a hot block for us now because on the 2nd of October, we had another robbery gun at 1807 Wiltberger. This is where about 8 unknown suspects surrounded the victim, pointed a handgun at him, ended up stealing his Volkswagen Jetta. No one was hurt, thankfully. But this is a block that we're definitely, we made a hot spot. Our, Crime Patrol 305, even though it's in 306, it's right next to 305. So they're hitting this, block as well. It's a quiet little block, but apparently they're taking advantage of that. So we're definitely, giving attention there in that block. Let me go back. There's one more robbery, force, and violence on October 3rd, 1514 New Jersey Avenue. This is where 2 suspects approached the victim in the alley, started to assault the victim, and stolen were some shoes and an Apple iPhone. And in this case, we have two black males, 30 to 40 years of age, about 6 feet in height. In that case is still open. We had an assault with a dangerous weapon, knife. This is at 1730 7th Street Northwest, in the building that was in the lobby. We arrested both suspects in this case, so that case is closed there. We had, now moving on to the burglaries, we had a burglary on September 8th at 1550 8th Street. That was closed by arrest. We were able to find the suspect up at 7th and Rhode Island Avenue, and he was positively identified and arrested. We had another burglary on September 8th at 1314 9th Street Northwest. That's an open case. We had a burglary on September 10th at 1317 5th Street Northwest. That case is still open. And we had a burglary on the 19th of September at 1245 5th Street Northwest, and that case is still open. 3D so far this year, we've gotten 242 guns compared to 132 guns at this point last year. So we've gotten a lot more guns off the street, although that's just showing how many more guns are out there. So it's a good sign we're getting more off the street, but there's just so many more, out there saturating the city. And that's basically all I have, unless you guys have, questions for me. Oh yeah, we also have our two face-to-face crime patrol units along the North Capitol corridor. They don't quite go over to New Jersey Avenue. I know, right, the ANC just goes to New Jersey, I believe, but we have, 2 crime patrols on the east side of New Jersey Avenue. And then we also have special attention, the 1300 block of 5th Street, 5th and O, and of course with Wiltberger as well. So those are the areas we're focusing on.
Thank you so much for that update, Captain Moore. Do we have any questions or feedback from commissioners? Commissioner Nigro.
Hi, Captain Moore. Nice to meet you.
Thank you.
So the person who was murdered in my area is Keith Allen. He was a constituent of mine. Absolutely horrific for the community, the surrounding community, and for the Second Northwest Cooperative, because he's lived there for 40 years.
Yeah.
So I implore you and your team, if anything can be found out, please do. It was devastating for that family. And if anyone is on the call that knows anything about this horrible murder, please come forward and talk to the police, because it is my belief that there are people that know about who murdered Keith Allen. That is at least obvious to me. So please. Now, you mentioned the robbery on N Street, the 400 block of N Street. And so I reached out to the commander about that. It's because they suggested to be young adults. So what is it that you guys actually do? Because that's close to Dunbar, right?
Right.
So how I don't quite get how MPD works with school security and the information. And were those Dunbar kids? I don't know, but.
Right. Right,
work?
right. We do have school resource officers at Dunbar. And they are typically involved in what's called safe passage, which is they get outside and they assist, making sure the kids are like at least getting away from the school safely, but they only go probably so far out because they have to be by the school. And then our officers, of course, are, answering calls for service and everywhere they have to be. So we don't dedicate an officer, at schools, obviously, we, although it's going to get, tougher for us because they're doing away with the school resource, officer program, which is, everybody has their opinions about, but, when they do away with all those, that's going to be less officers in and around the schools. And then they're going to depend more on the patrol officers who could be like across the district somewhere else handling lost wallet or something report, right? So we're doing our best. And if there is an issue with a school where there's going to be, like a possible fight or something like that after school, the school security division will reach out to us, and we will try to dedicate an officer to that school area after school to make sure the kids aren't fighting or anything like that after school when it lets out. But occasionally we're going to have a kid get jumped by other kids. That's just going to happen, but we're going to try to do our best to be in those areas when they do get out.
Okay, so but my question was really, is there an exchange of information between 3D and the school? Could they have identified those people? There's my question.
Right. So I had looked at the report. Let me pull it back up. I'm not sure if they've been positively ID'd yet.
But there
Or
is
if
an
we-
exchange, or
Oh, yeah. Oh,
okay.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's my question. I spoke with the what are they called? The guys who wear the green vests. What did you mention them? The school, not the school resource, the
Oh.
people that stand in front. What are
Safe
they called?
passage.
Yes, so the Safe Passage. So I introduced
Yeah.
myself to the Safe Passage
Yeah.
team at Dunbar. But yeah, so their area is very limited.
Yeah.
And I was like, can you cross New Jersey? And they said no.
Right.
So
Yeah.
that was it. So there's my answer. So I was
Yeah.
kind of disappointed because they were out there. There was like 4 of them. There were plenty of them. I'm like, can you go east or west? And they said no. And I said, well,
Yeah.
that's where I need help. So
Right. I know. We'll,
that's too
we
bad.
try to get in that area, when school lets out. There's no guarantee we can have the officer in there, but,
Well, I'm going to encourage who's ever in charge of the Safe Passage team to at least in our area, if they could go a little bit beyond a
Yeah.
little west. Because I
right.
think it would really help the area of the 400 block of N Street and Ridge Street. So,
Yeah.
but we'll see.
Yep. I agree. Thank you.
Any additional questions from commissioners? And seeing none, there is one question in the Q&A. Captain, can you share the community outreach team members that work with 6E? And
Right. So 3D has, one community outreach team, for the whole district. It consists of about 4 or 5 members. And I can always share their names, or I can give you the sergeant's name and email, or, I'll give you the sergeant's, email in the, messages, along with my email as well. Okay.
yeah, the question is in the Q&A, and you can jump in there and add an answer, I believe.
Okay.
And it's from our Board 6 liaison, John Madison. So
Okay.
you guys can probably connect otherwise, if not through this Q&A.
I have one more
Okay.
question. I'm sorry, I forgot.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Rumi's Kitchen there was an attempted robbery at Rumi's Kitchen, one of the restaurants in my area, yet very early yesterday morning. Are you guys aware of that? It was supposed to be reported. Do you know that?
What's the
600 block
address?
of 600 block of L Street.
600 block of L.
Well, I have a good picture. You probably have hopefully you have the picture. I was sent a good picture.
you know, 600 block of L.
I'll
Yeah,
catch you
that is-
offline. I'll catch
okay.
you offline. All right, I'll send it to you.
Yeah, right. Right, send me that, you know, for
In fact,
sure.
you
If
might
you have
have it, I hope.
anything, please send it
Okay.
to me, for sure.
I hope you guys have it. Okay, okay.
Any
Bye.
additional community questions? There's no one on the phone, so no need for *9. Feel free to raise your hand, community. And seeing none, thank you very much, Captain Moore, for coming out. Welcome. And
Thank you.
we look forward to working with you.
Thank you.
Okay. On to the next item, item 7, report from our mayor's office representative. And I just got word that our rep is running late and will not be joining on time. So we can possibly cycle back to getting an update from the mayor's office at a later time. Can we move on to item 8, which is our Ward 2 council member Brooke Pinto's office, Brian Romanowski. Welcome, Brian.
Hello. Good
Hey,
to see
Brian.
you. Well, I have a lot of updates, so I'm going to jump right in. We're having a very busy fall on the council, and I have a lot of legislative updates. So the first is that today the council voted on lots of big legislation. The most headline grabbing is probably dealing with elections. The council took their first vote on legislation to allow non-citizens to vote in local elections, and also took first vote on a legislation that would make vote by mail and ballot drop boxes permanent, and would also close DCPS schools on primary and general election days to allow for safer voting at schools. Those are just the first votes on both of those. There was also a first vote on a bill to legally protect anyone who comes to DC for an abortion or for gender affirming care. So all of those passed their first vote. The council also took final votes on the Safe Streets bill that bans right turns on red at most intersections by 2025. It also legalizes the Idaho stop for bike and scooter users. They also took final votes to expand paid family leave to DC government employees that will match the 12 weeks of leave now available for private sector employees. And the council also approved changes to the new Office of Migrant Services to ensure that DC residents currently in immigration proceedings aren't excluded from receiving services. Next week, on October 11th, the Housing Committee is having a hearing on Councilmember Pinto's Period Act, which will require the provision of free period products in all government restrooms. I'll put info on how to testify in the chat. If you remember us talking about this before, it's because a previous bill that was passed mandated this in DC schools, but not government restrooms yet. So that's the next step. As mentioned last month on October 28th, the Transportation and Environment Committee is holding a hearing on Councilmember Henderson's bill that Councilmember Pinto co-introduced, and that's the Right Sizing Residential Permit Parking Regulation Amendment Act of 2021. As a reminder, this bill will resize RPP zones from the size of the ward to the size of an ANC. We received a lot of concerns from residents about this, but we've also received a ton of comments and concerns from residents since Councilmember took office, saying that folks can't find parking near their home. And sometimes some people have said they've had to circle for over an hour to find a spot. So it's clear that the residential parking permit program is not working as intended currently. So this idea to resize the RPP zones to the size of an ANC is meant to ensure residents can more easily find parking and to encourages turnover in commercial corridors so that when you're running errands or doing something in another neighborhood, it would also hopefully be easier to find parking. If you have questions about this, because I'm sure you do, or you want to voice feedback on the bill, you can sign up to testify for that hearing, and I'll put the details for that in the chat or in the Q&A as well. The Committee on Recreation, Libraries, and Youth Affairs is holding a markup on Councilmember Pinto's bill. This is called the Fun Act this month. We don't have a date yet, but the bill aims to increase council oversight of private use of public space and prevent situations where use agreements are signed that allow private groups or institutions priority over the public without any council oversight. And that has happened at various places in Ward 2 in the past few years. So I will share information about that when the markup date is selected. And just follow us on social media if you don't already, or sign up for our newsletter because there's always so much happening in the fall at the council. A couple more things. Last week, the Committee of the Whole had a hearing on Chairman Mendelson's bill to reform the school budgeting process. I think most people would agree that the current budget process lacks transparency and doesn't serve teachers or students well. So we want to thank everyone who testified at the hearing, and we're looking forward to working with the chairman's team to incorporate a lot of feedback that we have received on that bill. We're continuing to work on the Business and Entrepreneurship Support to Thrive Amendment Act of 2021, the BEST Act, which reforms the licensing process for businesses with DCRA, or the new Department of Buildings and Department of Licensing. I gotta get that in my head, and reduces burdensome fees. So we will also work to get that done this fall. And then two last notes, our Ward 2 bike ride was rescheduled. It was supposed to be this past weekend, but it was rainy, not a very nice day, so we rescheduled. The new date is October 22nd, so we hope you can join us then, Saturday, October 22nd at 10 a.m. To 12 p.m. I'm going to put the details for that in the chat as well for you to RSVP. And as a reminder, we're starting at the Kennedy Rec Center on 7th, and we're going to bike west to Franklin Park, the Spanish Steps, and end in Rose Park in Georgetown. It's a little bit under 4 miles, so hopefully not too crazy for anybody. And finally, leaf season is upon us. Leaf collection for Ward 2 begins on November 6th. I will post a link in the chat to the DPW website leaf page, which has the brochure that you will probably receive in the mail. And it has a map of Ward 2 and the collection dates and other information. Be sure to look at that, because with the change of ward boundaries, they changed the leaf pickup boundaries. So I'm just not sure if it matches up from last year. That's one map that I haven't memorized. So be sure to check that link as well. And that is all for me.
Thank you so much for that update. Brian, do we have any questions from commissioners for our Ward 2 Councilmember Brooke Pinto's office?
So I'm glad Brian brought that up about the leaf problem, because my enclave folk, which includes Ed's 2/5, all my were forgotten last year, and I'm worried that, so I'm glad you reminded me of that, Brian. I like to thank you, so they don't get forgotten, because I can see that being screwed up.
Noted. Well, we can
Again.
send a note to I say we can send a leaf. We can send a note to DPW now, so they get it ahead of time that they have to have that figured out.
I'm going to do that tomorrow too. Thank you.
Any additional commissioner questions?
Hi, Brian. One comment and one, I apologize for this, one comment / question. Comment, just wanted to thank the council member for voting to support the voting rights expansion legislation today. I think that's really important to give our non-citizen residents a voice in local policy. But secondly, I wanted to talk about, I sent an email to the council member yesterday. I think you were on CC. It's about ANC finances. When ANC 2G is created next year, we are going to, the way that the ANC redistricting process happened 10 years ago, as I understand it, when new ANCs were created, the balance of the ANC accounts from the predecessor ANC was divided equally proportionally based on population between the successor ANCs. So for ANC 6E, we have approximately, it's about approximately a 50-50 split between residents that are being redistricted into 2G and redistricted into 6E. We have about $67,000 in the ANC bank account. Right now, under the current legislation, those $67,000 would stay with 6E, which will now be a different ANC that kind of extends over into NOMA, and 2G will be starting with a what would have been a zero balance, but I understand there's some legislation that will give us some startup funds, but would highly encourage the council to look to what was done 10 years ago to more equitably ensure that the allocations that have accumulated in ANC 6E's account are divided equitably or evenly, proportionally between the successor ANC 6E and the successor ANC 2G.
Okay, got it. Yes, I did see your email. I know they did pass legislation today for the emergency legislation for the startup funding for 2G, so that is good news. I don't have that in front of me, but I know they did pass that. And then I will talk to the council member about the existing funding and figuring out how that will work.
Thank you.
And while we're talking about ANC business, one question I have for you, but it also could apply to other council member reps, is the issue of when going back to virtual going back to real world meetings from virtual. I believe there's still a pending November deadline. And is there any motion on the council side to permit staying in virtual meeting format?
Let me check on that. I don't think that was part of the legislation today, but I just want to double check.
Sure, and you can also just respond offline, but that is something that we're really curious about. I know that 1B is going back to in person this month. Well, I don't know that we're excited about going back to in person, and maybe people on the call can chime in also if they want, but feel free to follow up offline.
Well, I'll speak for my seniors. My seniors love the virtual calls because they can call in and sit on their couch and listen. And as I've said very publicly, no one wants to see us on a cold winter night in the basement of the Shaw Library. No one said that.
Yeah, and on a night like tonight in the rain and it's chilly, I mean, it's just nice to have
No.
virtual.
The Shaw Library closes at 6, so it would really be a speedy meeting.
Well, wherever, no one's coming, no one wants to
Yeah.
see us. That's the reality of it all.
That's
So,
another really good point. Like, we don't necessarily have a default meeting space lined up since the library was where we met before.
Noted.
Okay,
Okay.
any comments from the community for Ward 2? And hearing none, thank you very much for coming out tonight. I look forward to hearing more from you.
Thanks. And I'll put my info in the Q&A.
Great, thanks so much. And then moving on to item 9, our Ward 6 Councilmember Allen's office, Jean Madison. And here we go. Welcome, Jean.
Thanks so much. Thanks, Brian, for taking the lion's share of the legislative updates. I would mention that the Department for Hire Vehicles emergency law that we did, that we introduced, gives them the authority to enforce when delivery trucks and drivers block traffic lanes, crosswalks, bike lanes, and other travel lanes. So that's sort of new because they were actually not eligible to ticket these guys, the food delivery guys. So that's going to help with any commercial corridors. There are no new fines, but it's just an additional enforcement ability specific for food services. I guess I'll also mention that for seniors, Councilmember Allen led a bill that strengthens protections around power of attorney to protect seniors from financial abuse. There is a lot more to come this month, including 9 bills today on public safety. But any questions for that stuff, please email the council member directly and copy me. I'll put my email in the chat. I will note again that council has changed their email address from .us to .gov. So any of you guys we still get our .us emails, but our email is our first initial last name at dccouncil.gov now. I don't know how many folks are aware that the DCRA is splitting up to one is sort of focused on buildings and one is focused on licensing. So that's sort of now actually happening. And then the last thing I'll mention is that the ballots have gone out. So we have mail-in ballots this year, just like last year. And so you should receive your ballot in the next couple of days. So happy to take any questions.
Thank you so much, John. Do we have any questions from commissioners for our Ward 6 rep? And seeing none, any questions from constituents or community members? If you are one person on the phone, dial *9 to raise your hand Anyone else? Questions for Councilmember Allen? And seeing none. Thank you very much for joining us this evening and for that update, John.
Yeah, I will say that it's really great to be able to have this hybrid meeting with all of the different councils offices that touch this area, because I think that that's super valuable. Number one, I have some history, and I feel like Brian brings a whole new fresh set of eyes, as well as sort of finally joining together Ward 2 as, making it more whole. So I just want to say that anything that I can do to help in that capacity, I'm really happy to see that you guys are pursuing that multi-ward approach, and happy to be a part of that.
Thanks so much. Okay, take care. We'll see you next time. Oh, wait, there may be one question. Oh, no, that's just from Brian. Never mind. We're good. Thank you so much. See you next time. Okay, and our next item is item 10, Ward 5 rep.
Anyone
members.
here from, I saw you invited Kelly Sislo.
I did.
Anyone here to represent the enclave? Ward 5. My
Anyone from
prediction's
Ward
coming
5?
true. Don't let my prediction come true.
Self-fulfilling prophecy.
Self-fulfilling. That's too bad. This makes me very sad.
Okay,
Very
so
unfortunate.
moving on from item 10, we are just only a couple minutes late. Moving on to item 11, DC Water, Stormwater and Flood Mitigation. We have DC Water here. Mr. Briggs, welcome. And do you have any colleagues that we would like to add to the panel?
Yes, sir. Musa Wane, the director of our DC Clean Rivers project, is going to be going through the slides. But I do want to kick off things by thanking you for having us at your meeting this evening to kind of talk about where we are with things. As we understand, folks within the ANC 60 area and other areas across the district have been having some flooding issues and backup issues since the storms mid-August. And I'm sure many have seen it before then, but we were made aware of some of the properties in and around the area through the August storms. And so we're here tonight to just kind of talk a little bit about kind of where we are in terms of investigations and kind of next steps, including where we are with our Northeast Boundary Tunnel project. With that said, I'll hand things over to Musa.
Thank you, Musa. You're on.
Okay, good evening. Can you guys hear me?
Yep, you're coming through just fine.
Okay, so I also have I don't know whether Emmanuel mentioned it, because when you guys pulled me in as a panelist, I lost, the sound there. I have also here with me the Salir Karkar, who is our senior technical advisor to our COO. I have two slides, one on interim measures and the other one on the flood task force that he's going to be also addressing. So I'm just going to pull out my presentation. Let's see who I can share my screen. Can you guys see my screen?
Musa, we can see it.
Okay. So good evening, and thank you for the opportunity. So I'm going to be giving you a presentation. So my presentation going to focus on the rainfall that happened in August 10. I'm also going to give you some background information on the Northeast Boundary drainage area, the history of the flooding in the district, and why it was not completely addressed. And then I will talk about the Northeast Boundary Tunnel project, which you all guys see going on right now on Rhode Island Avenue. And also the August 10 flooding calls that we received. And then I will show you a map where the ANC 6E flooding location and the properties that filed complaints, and then I hand it to Salir. So in this slide here, we're just showing what happened in Let me just see.
You good, Musa?
I'm good? Okay.
Yeah. You lost your voice.
Yeah, so in this slide here, I'm just going to show you, okay, the rainfall that happened in August 10. So it was over 2 inches of rain that was observed the first hour of the storm. And based on the data, what we got, that storm is estimated to be between 12 and 17-year storm event. So for the northeast boundary drainage area in this slide that I'm showing here, so I color coded it. The light orange is the northeast boundary drainage area, and the light green here, that's a Bloomingdale and the Ledroy Park drainage area. So the area served by the northeast boundary sewer was constructed 1870, 1880 timeframe. And part of the district combined sewer system, when we talk about combined sewer system, is one pipe in the street, and that pipe, during dry weather, it carries only sewer, and during wet weather, it carries both sewer and storm water, and the mixture, that's what we call a combined sewer. This whole thing was built in the early 1900s. So in the slide here, what I'm showing you here is the map of the district. This is how the district looked like in the late 1859 timeframe. As you can see, the boundary for the developed area was Florida Avenue. Everything north of Florida Avenue was undeveloped. So even then, when we built the existing northeast boundary sewer, I'm going to show you in the next slide the cross section. Flooding occurred soon after the construction of this northeast boundary trunk sewer. That is just saying that the sewer capacity was too low from the get-go before even all these areas were developed. And subsequent development substantially increased the load and on sewer system in early 900. So as you can see here, this is a cross-section of the northeast boundary trunk sewer. So the existing northeast boundary sewer is about half as large as needed. That's from the get-go. Constructing another sewer of this size was just unfeasible because it's gonna, bring in a lot of, disruption to the neighborhood using open cut. But now with the tunneling technology, so had made this soft ground tunneling basically practical right now. So in this slide here, what I'm showing you is the northeast boundary tunnel. This is the red line, what you guys see here. And this tunnel is under construction right now. So this tunnel was realigned after the 2012 flooding in the Bloomingdale and the Ledroy Park area. The mayor put in a task force and they come up with a recommendation. Some of the engineering recommendation was to come up with short-term, mid-term, and long-term. And the first three tunnel, which is, here, the first three tunnel that was built in the Bloomingdale and the Ledroy Park area was part of the mid-term solution. And then the northeast boundary tunnel also was realigned to pick up the chronic flooding areas. As you can see here on those, light blue square, what I have here. This one is Mount Olivet Road. This is Rhode Island Metro, 4th Street. Then we have Rhode Island and T Street. We have 1st Street, and then we have 6th and R. So, and what I'm showing here is basically a divergent chamber. What we call by a divergent chamber is, what we do when we are trying to pick up the excess flows in the existing system and preventing it on flooding. So we build a chamber around the existing sewer, and then we have a side weir, and the weir is set at, is put at a set elevation. Once it exceeds that elevation, the excess flows goes into what we call an approach channel. We drop it deep in a tunnel, in a shaft, which is 100 feet deep, and then we put it in the tunnel to take it to Blue Plains to be treated. That's a technology that what we are using now for our northeast boundary tunnel and for our Fifth Street tunnel and for all the tunnel that we are building right now as part of the Clean Rivers project. So the northeast boundary tunnel, it's a 23-foot diameter tunnel. It is 5 miles long. This is the largest project ever implemented by DC Water. It's $580 million. It is designed to provide CSO controls and mitigate flooding in specific chronic area up to 15 years, 24-hour storm. If I say 15 years storm, it means there are 7% chances of that storm of occurring. If every time if you hear us, we say 15 years, it's 7% chance. If we say 2 years storm, it's 50 years chance. If we say 1 year storm, it's 100% chance. That means every time it rains, you're gonna get flooded. So the consent decree required the project to be placed on March 23rd, 2025, but because of the flooding that happened in 2012 and the mayor task force, the northeast boundary tunnel, which is the long-term solution for that area, was accelerated. And this tunnel is going to be put in service in summer of 2023. So in this map here, what we are showing here again, it's the August 10 rainfall. So rainfall has significant geographical variation, especially in summer thunderstorm. So what we have here is just to show that the radar shows more intense rain in northeast portion of DC and Maryland. And also the rainfall exceeded the capacity of the system. The current capacity of the system is between 1 and 2 year storm. Basically, 1, again, 100% chance it's gonna happen. 2 is 50% chance in the system, it's gonna happen. This is the current system, that's what we have out there. So what we did, we plotted here in this map, the properties that filed the claim that their properties has been flooded. So these are all the properties that we, that filed claims. So what we did here is to show this is the boundaries of the ANC 6E. And these are the properties that filed claim. And the red line here is the northeast boundary tunnel. And this big dot here is the R Street on the northeast boundary tunnel. And here it's a Florida Avenue. As you can see, in Florida Avenue, we're going to build there a diversion chamber. Remember, I told you diversion chamber, we're going to come build a chamber around that sewer to pick up the excess flows. So that's going to relieve the sewer here. And then at R Street, we're going to have another diversion chamber there that's going to relieve the sewer here. So what it does, by relieving these sewers and putting them into the northeast boundary tunnel, we're going to have more space in the system. So these properties, their sewer are going to be pushing them here. So that's going to reduce the chances of flooding. So what I can convey to you here for ANC 6E properties, basically, but northeast boundary tunnel gonna help mitigate flooding, but flooding up to 15-year storm. That means storm that have 7% chance of occurring in any given year. So then what we did after we got those, complaints from those residents, these addresses what we received. So what we did, we put in work orders and we send our operation guys to go outside there and see what is the issue. So in this table here, we summarize this for the 914 French Street. The problem was a sewer backup into the flood drain. And when our crews went there, they found no obstruction in main and public portion of laterals. So then the 215 Morgan Street, exam, no problem found. The 425 M Street, no problem found. And then at Kirby Street, we still doing investigation. People are gonna say, how come no problem was found? I have my basement flooded. Yes, because the system capacity exceeded. That's why you have those, that flood going out there. And again, I repeat it, for those, properties that are in the vicinity of the northeast boundary tunnel, once that tunnel is in service, up to 15 years storm, it will be, mitigated. But higher storm will not be completely mitigated, but their capacity basically of nuisance going to be significantly reduced. So for the Kirby Street, DC Water basically going to send out their crews to investigate what is the issue, because our preliminary, investigation there, we don't think it's a sewer backup. So that's why we want to see whether it is a local issue or not. So we're still doing investigation for these properties. So then these are interim measures. Now I'm going to pass it to Khalil Sarkar, who is our senior technical advisor to our Chief Operating Officer. Salil.
Thank you, Musa. That was excellent. It's very informative. The pictures really help. Commissioner Agro and Commissioner Alex, thank you very much for spending time with us on Friday when we walked through the area. That was helpful to see it firsthand. As Musa pointed out, it's absolutely going to help when the tunnel comes online next year. But I do want to let everybody know the tunnel is not the complete solution, because there's always going to be that one storm that exceeds the capacity. And therefore, homes with basements per the code, DCRA code, plus the good engineering, is homes that have fixtures underneath the roadway should have backwater valves to protect the homes. That's just a requirement in the law. Now, as part of the Clean Rivers program, folks that flooded in 2012, and then recently when they flooded September 2020, there was limited areas where DC Water has provided backwater valves. We are working through the flood program to expand it out to the entire city. The details have to be worked out yet, but there are individuals who may not have valves even though the code requires it, and we're looking for circumstances where we can help them out. The M Street property that we looked at, it's the connection to what's called the areaway drain. Areaway drain are drains outside the homes. On that particular property, that drain is 8 feet below the roadway, and it's just about a foot above the sewer line. That is very close to the sewer line, and it definitely needs to be protected. But we would talk about that one separately. Also following up on discussions with the residents in that area on Friday, which was helpful. We had our sewer team check the cleaning schedules on the catch basins to make sure they were clear. They have about a quarter full in catch basin terms means they're empty. They are also scheduled to be cleaned again this October 15th, and the other piece will be cleaned in November 15th on M Street. So before the end of this year, there'll be another round of cleaning of all the catch basins in this area. Next slide. And I'm not sure, and I hope most of the folks here know about the DC task force, but after September 10, 2020, the mayor asked for the task force to be created. It's created with the deputy mayor of operations and infrastructure as the chair. And the co-chairs of the task force are Mr. Wells, who is the director of DOE, and our CEO, Mr. Gaddis. And underneath that, we have 26 agencies working together to look at different strategic aspects of flooding across the city and how we could address them. It ranges from an integrated flood model for the entire city to creating insurance instruments that are affordable, to address flooding in the city, to flood-proofing homes. It's just a range of solutions. And this website for that is dcfloodtaskforce.org. I highly recommend, I even implore that you get a chance, please visit the task force website. We look for public comments. We've had several meetings where we look for the public to comment in on it, and we'll continue to do so. We've developed a range of action plans on how to address some of these problems that are on that website. So please do. And then if you have any more comments or suggestions, we'd be happy to address them.
Thank you for that presentation, gentlemen. Much appreciated, and I'm glad you were able to make it this month, though we had you on the calendar for last month and we weren't able to make that happen. Very informative and great information. I'll start off with just one comment representing my constituents, that there was some concern that there wasn't a lot of feedback from DC Water after problems were reported. It was sort of a black box, like they reported some concerns and they just didn't hear back for days and weeks. And that was why I had to get involved. So I'm just curious, can you tell us a little bit about what our customers can expect on feedback from you when they report a problem?
My apologies that they didn't get loop closure on this. The way the system works is we highly recommend, there's a command center number. Thank you very much. Once the command center gets a call, they create an investigation work order. And depending on the severity of the call, if it's flooding, it's the most severe call. They dispatch a crew right away. They go out there, they investigate, and they close the loop with the command center in the write-up. If it's a follow-up work, something they can address, they do follow through and inform the resident. I am surprised that there wasn't a loop closure. I'm not saying there wasn't. If there wasn't one, we need to find out why there wasn't one and fix that problem. One of the issues we found out in the flood task force and talking to customers and residents that called in, if an issue doesn't belong to an agency that's investigating, they typically ask the customer to call a different agency, but sometimes that call gets dropped between agencies. So we're working out a one-call system so that regardless of which agency gets a call from a resident, that continues through and there is some accountability and there's a loop closure, even if it moves from one agency to another agency.
Great.
Just to add to that, Chair Ashler, is just to let you know also DC Water has created a whole new department called watershed management. So, as Salil said, things gonna be really significantly improved, and we are sorry that your constituent didn't hear back.
Yeah, and I think the concern is that they emailed customer service instead of the command center, right? Okay. There shouldn't have to be an inbox issue where something sits in the customer service inbox for 2 weeks because they didn't they didn't send it to the right group. I mean, if you have a customer service inbox, you probably should be checking it pretty regularly and forwarding it. I mean, again, it shouldn't have to be on the customer to know which email address to send. It should be one inbox for everything if it's a customer facing inbox. So that's just my feedback there. Commissioner Nagar, and actually, gentlemen, would you mind taking your screen down so we can have our faces up for discussion? Great, thank you. Commissioner Nagar.
Hi, thank you to DC Water for coming out. We really appreciate it. And most of those people are, the 3 of those are what we call the Enclave, Ward 5. So, but you got the address wrong on your, so it's 213 Morgan Street. Just to double check. But my thing is, so when you guys came out last week and you looked at the area, Kirby and Morgan and all that, you said you're gonna do the running models, right? The models?
Yes.
Still, don't leave them.
No, we're not. That takes a little bit of while to do that.
Okay.
So team will absolutely run the model to see exactly what the impact's going to be.
So what will that look like when it comes back? Will you guys report back to me or the individual residents, or what happens?
We would report back to you because it's not per the resident. It'll just show us how the tunnel, when it goes into effect, will help with different storms.
Mhm. And so
Yep.
the one on M Street was pretty, I mean, I was there with you, the one on M Street. I mean, what does that look like for a resolution? That was different, to say the least. So,
Absolutely. So we're going to have to take the M Street and talk to our permits department and see what experience they've had with different areas that have the same issue and how they've handled it. But it's probably going to end up being that the building is going to have to put in some device there and reduce the amount of flow and how they route it.
okay, well, I just wanted to, don't forget about any of my constituents.
I don't know.
Especially the enclave, especially don't forget them.
Any additional commissioners with questions or feedback?
Yes, I have a question. What do you, so we have a lot of renters and a lot of multifamily buildings in our area. If you are not the property owner, can you still engage with DC Water through these panels, reporting flooding and things of that nature? Or does it need to come from the property owner?
Not at all. And Commissioner Lopez, thank you for coming out on Friday. Really appreciate you being there. Anybody who experiences flooding can call the command center and we will respond. Does not have to be the owner. Flooding in a home is never pleasant and it needs an immediate response.
Thank you for that. I will pass that information on.
Please.
Okay, we have one question in the Q&A about who is responsible for the design and construction of Cooper Gordon Park, which is at the R Street site where I believe the tunnel boring machine will be coming out. Do you have any comments on that? I mean, we asked you here to talk about flooding and stormwater and not necessarily the R Street Park, but if you have any insights for us, you could share this here.
No, the Cooper Park is part of the northeast boundary tunnel. As you guys see, we have the, our shaft within the park, and this is where we pulled out the tunnel boring machine. So as part also of the agreement is once we restore the park, also they're going to put there a piece of art that DC Water granted them $75,000 to go ahead, purchase and put it in the park. So the park going to be restored. And then, I will say even more beautiful than it is right now. That's part of the northeast boundary tunnel scope of work.
Right, I guess the question is who is responsible for the design and construction of that park?
The park itself, is, we're going to restore it. Okay, we are responsible for restoring the park. And then putting there a pedestal for the art. But the piece of art, I believe it's the DGS or, Commission of Fine Art. Also, sure. They are the one who are responsible. We just give them the money. They are the one who's going to go procure, the artist and the piece of the art, put it out there. But we will put there, the infrastructure for them to come put the piece of art out there.
So there's another question in the Q&A. Who is the first responder for street flooding? Should that be DDOT or should that be DC Water? And also, if somebody spots street flooding, to whom should they report it? Should that be 311? Should that be DC Water Command Center? Any comments on first responder for street flooding and how to report?
We always prefer flooding complaints come to the command center first. Okay. What we have set up based on lessons learned after September 10th is we have 5 people managing the command center 24 hours a day. And if we anticipate a hurricane, we will staff it up with more staff. But what happened September 10th was there was no warning when that storm hit us. So we have recently worked out a memorandum of understanding with 311 and our IT departments have talked to each other to route calls back and forth so they're seamless. So a caller will not know the difference. So there's no waiting in line. But we always prefer water-related calls to come to us first.
Okay, thank you for that.
Mhm.
Any additional comments from community members? And seeing none, thank you very much for coming out to join us here at 6E. Very informative presentation and great responses on feedback from commissioners and community members. So we hope not to see you again soon, unless you want to talk about art at the
At the
street.
park. Okay. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you very much. It's really nice walking with you guys. Thank you so much.
Thanks again. Take care.
Good night.
And on to the next item, which is item 12, presentation from 7-Eleven to address our questions about the storefront at 1622 7th Street Northwest, the corner of 7th and Rhode Island Avenue. Can we get Mr. Evans? His hand is up. I know, I hate it the way it jumps. You look for it in here and then it jumps and you. We appreciate you, Ed.
He moved again. Did you move? You didn't move him, did you?
I didn't touch him, no.
Okay, wait, let me see if he went back down. I mean, I was just ready to move him over.
And now he's back
Oh,
up.
there he is. I see it. Okay, let's see. Don't move, Jim. Okay.
Okay. Is that working? Looks like he's coming on over. Welcome back, Mr. Evans. Let's give him a second to, here we go.
All right, can you hear me okay?
Hi, Jim, you're coming through just fine. Thanks so much.
Okay, great. Okay. Glad to be back with the group here again tonight. I know at the last meeting, the question was asked about this site, if we were going to redevelop it or what the plans were with this particular site. I was able to confirm with development as well as construction that we are planning to reopen this as a traditional 7-Eleven. The construction should be starting in the next couple of months with opening early next year. But it will be a traditional 7-Eleven that we're looking to rebuild the site really just newer than the version that was there before. So I don't really have a full presentation or anything. I know I was asked a question and asked to speak on this. So I'll gladly answer any questions that you may have, but we fully intend to reopen that as a traditional 7-Eleven.
Okay.
Okay, well, that is a nice brief update, and actually we're running behind schedule. So if you don't need the full 20 minutes, we clearly don't need you to fill it. Any questions from commissioners?
Yeah, I'll do one, and sorry to sort of go back to last month's topic as well, Jim, but I just wanted to double check with you. I put you on an email thread with your neighbors at Stellina Pizzeria for the 400 block of K Street location. Have you guys been able to connect? I didn't see any traffic on that thread, but maybe you guys are doing it offline.
I have not connected with them yet. I'll certainly thank you for introducing us, and I'll set up a time when I'm there in town to meet with them. But certainly talk with them now. I did receive your email regarding the introductions.
Okay, great. Yeah, they're the crucial stakeholder there on that block. So if you guys could link up, that'd be great, and happy to get a readout after or anything like that. So thanks.
Okay, certainly I can do that.
Any other question?
Just want
I
to
have a
note
question.
for the record that this particular lot was it was upflummed in the future land use map, meaning that there's greater allowed density now than there was previously, and it's right across the street, essentially from a metro station. So as much as I love 7-Eleven and we do need quick spots to shop in our neighborhood, I do believe that the existing use as a convenience store with a surface parking lot is a pretty poor use of valuable district land, and would love to see housing there with a 7-Eleven on the first floor.
Okay.
And Commissioner Nigro.
So Jim, I just want to thank you for the increased security at the K Street 7-Eleven. As you know, as everyone now knows, I go there like 4 times a week. So anything that you guys are doing to keep that the customers and the employees safe there is very much appreciated, as we look forward to further efforts on the corporate offices part. And I myself look forward to getting a Slurpee at the Rhode Island Avenues at 2 a.m. of course, always at like 2 a.m.
Thank you, and thank you for your partnership in meeting us down there so quickly. I do have I'll work with the neighbors. Patrick, thank you for the introduction there. We still would like to, at least on a limited basis, be able to play some of the music. And I have a couple of other things that if able to get back on the agenda for November, what we'd like to do to help deter some of, the loitering and such that I know came up on the earlier part with the chief of police. So we are working on it.
Sounds good. Feel free to reach out to me about getting on the November agenda, or I'll reach out to you when I start putting that together. We do have a question from the community, and actually I don't know the answer to it, so maybe Jim, you can address it directly. What exactly is your title? They want to know what your role is with 7-Eleven and why it is that you're here with us today. And I actually couldn't find it in your email.
Okay, I'm the region director of operations, so I cover all of the corporate store operations for the Northeast. So from the District of Columbia up to Maine. So it's just over 900 stores. So I also opened the K Street location as part of the Evolution team. That was a prior role that I was in. So I'm happy to be back in DC. And since I did open that store, I'm here representing the company as the director of operations for the Northeast.
Much appreciated. So if you happen to have any longer term plans for Rhode Island and 7th, and you want to share those evolving plans with us when you come back in November, you're welcome to do that as well.
Okay, thank you.
Sure thing. All right, thanks so much for coming out and chatting with us this evening, and we'll look forward to hearing from you soon.
Great, thank you.
Okay, on to the next.
Muted yourself, Michael.
Thank you for that. Let's so that our next item is item 13, which is from our ABRA committee. So can we please bring forward our ABRA committee chair, Alex Padro, as well as our one licensee this month for the cloakroom, Class C nightlife license for the cloakroom.
Hey, good evening, everyone.
There's Tony. And
move over.
Here you got him.
Yeah.
And there is the Honorable Alexander Padro.
Thank you. And as you mentioned, there is only one case from the ABRA committee this month. That is 476K LLC, trading as Cloakroom. And I believe we have a representative, Tony, on the line.
Yep, he's right here.
Yep.
I guess I can't see him on my screen. Well, great. Just to summarize, this is a Class C nightclub license. Hours of operation are 10:30 a.m. to 5 a.m. 7 days. Hours of summer garden operation are 10:30 a.m. to 2 a.m. Sunday through Thursday, Fridays and Saturdays, 10:30 a.m. to 3 a.m. They do also have a rooftop in operation at that location. Investigative history, there were 2 incidents since the last renewal. In February of 2020, there was a citation for operating outside of approved hours. Those hours subsequently have been adjusted. And also there was a violation for allowing employees or agents to engage in sexual acts or contact. That matter was resolved through a fine that was paid. It's a $2,000 fine. And then in October of 2020, as with many of our licensees, there was a violation related to the mayor's order related to COVID-19. And that matter was also resolved through the payment of a fine. The licensee did provide the committee with explanations of how they have acted since these violations, so that there have been no recurrences, and I'm sure that he'd be happy to recap that for the commission as well. We did not receive any concerns through the single district commissioner for this property, Commissioner Parley, and as a result, the committee recommended that the commission support the renewal of this license.
Thank you for that report. Any comments from, well, Mr. Parley, would you care to make some comments?
Yep, thanks. Yeah, and so I often solicit feedback for when these come up, since they do so often in this area. I got two sort of minor ones I just want to flag, Tony, and if I could ask you to bring those back to the management. The first is one constituent noted that occasionally the noise gets a little bit overwhelming. And this is sort of a classic thing we run into here because we're so residential and there's a ton of businesses around. So I just want to flag that as a concern that I have received, and hoping we can, just be mindful in the future for operations. And then I got one comment, which is a bit more general, but I think given what this establishment sort of is, people often perceive a linkage to crime. And so that's just another thing I just want to mention because I feel it's important to just flag, but obviously you guys probably don't want criminal activity in your own establishment either, but something that I want to flag as well. Other than that, I don't have any other comments. I'm ready to make a motion, but I'm happy to pass it back to you, Michael, to solicit other feedback.
Sure. We'll first, Mr. Cavasilos, would you care to?
You just call me Tony.
Tony, would you care to address the commission and the community?
There's not much I was planning on saying. I mean, we've been, I think, in my opinion, great neighbors to the whole community. And despite the business of what it entails, if you walk by the block, I think we probably have the nicest storefront around. In my personal opinion, the bias, I think what I've heard back is people feel very safe walking by our place, well lit. We have a host, aka security outside. So walking around our corner, people seem to be very feel safe, in other words, for lack of a better term. But to address Patrick, I haven't heard noise complaint in a couple of years since the rooftop first opened, and we were having issues from the rooftop itself, but I'm glad you brought it up to me. No, that's about it. I think personally, I think we're great neighbors, and despite the business of what it is, if you don't go inside, you wouldn't even know. So.
Any additional comments from commissioners?
Right, Rochelle?
No, Rochelle, you're muted. So if you want to make a comment, you've got to.
No, I have no comment, but that is correct. You wouldn't know. So they do keep the front, that is correct. Because we just previously talked to the 7-Eleven and there are concerns, but if you go down the street a little bit, it's a beautiful front facade there. So he is correct about that.
And any feedback from community members, anyone on the phone, dial *9 to raise your hand. Otherwise, raise your hand or put something in the Q&A. Seeing none, I will go ahead and turn it back over to Commissioner Parley.
Sure. I move that ANC 6E support the renewal of Class C nightclub license for Cloakroom located at 476 K Street Northwest and communicate that support to Abra.
Can I get a second?
A second.
Okay, seconded by Commissioner Rogers. Moved and seconded. Any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor, vote by saying aye. Aye.
I'm going to say no.
Oh, and then so there's any nays? One nay.
One nay.
And is there any abstentions? Okay, so that is 5, 1, and 0 abstentions. Thank you very much. Mr. Tony, for coming out this evening. And
Thank you,
maybe we'll
Michael.
see you in a few years.
All right.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thanks so much. And thank you, Mr. Padro, for your service this evening. On to the next item, which is 14, support for zoning relief for 10016 6th Street Northwest, aka 501 K Street Property Owner LLC. Let me move over our speakers. All right, so if you raise your hand while I'm, yeah, there we go. We've got Mr. Sullivan.
Sean.
And looks like we have a
Guy Stewart, that's Guy Stewart.
we have a whole group of folks joining us this evening. And just double checking one thing. Yep, Guy Stewart, and then didn't quite there. Okay. Is everybody on? Okay, it looks like we've got the group coming through.
Great.
Sure. So Commissioner Nago, you want to kick us off?
Okay, I don't know, if Patrick, do you want to start or should I?
Why don't you go ahead?
This is a big deal.
Go ahead. You're really excited, Rochelle.
Not, well, no, not my area. So I welcome Sean and Mr. Stewart and David. So for everyone, this is the big parcel of land, the infamous parcel now that has been empty for decades, that is currently a parking lot, and the little flex bus stop at the corner of 5th and K Street, and the official address being 1001 6th Street. That is the official address. So we are here tonight to talk about two reliefs that they are looking for zoning for this property P to be real to develop. But let me just start out that this is basically a by right project with they're asking for two small reliefs. The first one being the front build to line requirements relief and the penthouse setback relief. So I will let them, they have a huge presentation and not a huge, I'm sorry, a presentation. I shouldn't say huge, a presentation, and they'll be willing to take, questions from the community too. But just talk about what the committee, they came before the committee and the committee did support the two small BZA asks. So that's it.
Let me just add one thing, and that is, Rochelle has a great intro. The one thing I got a few comments about, just to be clear to the public, so the ANC doesn't have jurisdiction on whether or not this project can or should exist in general. What we can do is comment on the specific zoning relief that the developer is asking for, and we provide that recommendation of what we think about those requests to the Board of Zoning, which then uses it as material for their making their own decision. So I did get a few emails that were like, this shouldn't exist at all, but that's not what the question is tonight from a commission standpoint. Just want to lay that out at the outset. I do think though, if you're a member of the public and you're interested, you can ask these guys tough questions and they'll answer them, even if they fall outside of the kind of the zoning relief type question. So
absolutely 100. That's why they're here. So we as Patrick is aware of my infamous posting to Instagram that went viral. So we had green space and all sorts of questions where this doesn't even exist. So feel free to ask questions, but whatever's gonna happen, there's gonna be something happening on this lot. There you go. Okay, Sean, David.
All right, thank you so much. I'm gonna share my screen.
And we can see your screen. Thank you.
Great, let me go.
There we go. And now it's in presentation mode. Perfect. Thank you very much.
Okay. Well, thank you everyone for allowing us to come tonight. It's great to be here, and we're very excited to, one, start the process for designing the building. That's namely why we're here. And I just want to say at the outset that, as was mentioned, we're in the conceptual design phase of this project. So I know it's there are some photos and renderings that are representative images or sort of our early stage massing of the project. Please don't gravitate too much to those. We're in the early stages. We're going to continue to refine them. We will be back when we go in for our public space permit, so this will not be the last time you see us. I would also add that, you know, down the line, when we do get closer to actual construction of the project, we will be meeting with stakeholders around the neighborhood. Actually, I've already started that. I've reached out to City Vista just this week to provide a precursor. But tonight, we're specifically here to ask or to present or explain 2 specific requests as it relates to the design. And with that, I am going to jump into it. So at the moment, we are considering 2 schemes. The first is an all residential project. That would be roughly 550 units, around 28,000 square feet of ground floor retail, and 2 levels of below grade parking. The second conceptual plan is a hotel residential combination. It would be around 489 units, around 270 rooms in a hotel, the same same amount of retail, and again, 2 levels of below grade parking. And again, I think everyone is aware of the site, but just to give a little bit of context, New York Avenue is to the north. We have 5th Street to the east, 6th Street to the west, and K Street to the south. We wanted to start tonight just by talking a little bit about the ground floor plan, because it's really where 2 of the larger sort of distinctions are between the 2 plans. And there's also the most nuance in terms of loading and access. I want to say also from the outset, I know this was brought up on the zoning committee meeting, we are working to refine our streetscape plan. We will be back again when we go in for our public space. We are going to comply with all DDOT requirements. We're big believers in maximizing green space and street activation and outdoor seating. So again, please try not to get too attached to what we're showing here, but we are going to be refining that. And then we are also going to be abiding by the green area ratio as required by DOEE. So just to get into the plan a little bit, what you're seeing here on the left is the all residential ground floor plan. So everything in purple is retail. The yellow is our primary residential area. And the pink arrows represent the 2 building entrances, one off of 6th Street and one off of 5th Street. The 5th Street one is the one that we're going to be talking about in a second. But as you see here, what's dividing the site is effectively our main corridor for access and loading. So it's a shared corridor. If you are a residential parker, you would be coming in from 5th Street, pulled down into the garage this way. When you're exiting, you're coming up this side of the ramp and going out to the west to 6th Street. And then you have loading here for the residential, excuse me, loading here for the retail, loading over here for the residential, okay? Going over to the hotel residential plan, it's very similar. The main difference is that on 5th Street, what we see here in blue is what's called a preferred use. More than likely, this is going to be a restaurant that is sort of a, an ancillary use to the hotel with entrances out onto 5th Street, also connecting to what is right here at this pink arrow, which is the hotel lobby. But again, everything else primarily works the same. So getting into the 2 specific requests, it's just an overview, and I'll dive into both of them in a little bit more detail. The first is a street level building setback. We're looking to gain a little bit more relief in terms of the distance from the street. The required percentage of the 5th Street frontage is 25%. We're looking to get 32% beyond 4 feet. So again, not a very big difference, but we think it does make a big impact on the entrance, feel, look, and safety. And then the second request relates to the penthouse structure. So we're looking to have up to 4 penthouse structures rather than the 1 continuous structure that's required. And then the second nuance to that is that we're actually looking to have a pedestrian connection between the two structures, because we're looking to have two towers for the residential apartments. So starting with the building setback, again, there's a lot of numbers here, and I'll show a photo in a minute. But essentially, we're looking to add, if the whole street frontage is 323 feet, what's mandated is 81 feet. We're looking to have 100 feet, so roughly 20 more feet of setback, meaning it's set back more than 4 feet off the sidewalk. So the area in blue here is really where we're looking to get that. And if you remember the previous slide, that's where the 5th Street residential entrance is. So here's just an early stage rendering of what that looks like. So this is the entrance to the corridor, the service corridor that I mentioned. This is the building entrance. And what we're looking to do, again, is to really allow for a little bit more activation, to allow for a little bit more room. 4 feet is not very much when you're thinking about pedestrians and people coming in and out of a building. And the other thing is we think it improves safety, giving a little bit more visibility around this corridor. It will be open to the public. It's not private in any way. We're looking to landscape it, perhaps introduce some art. So moving to the second request as it relates to the penthouse structure. So this is again an early stage massing for the tower. You see here 1, 2, 3, 4 structures. We're looking to which is what we're looking to provide rather than one continuous. And then there's a corridor here that we think adds a lot in terms of function and operational benefits to the project to allow people to access both towers. If the amenity deck is on one of these residents, if say the amenity deck is on this side, these residents have the ability to cross over. So, we think that this is not an uncommon request. It comes up quite a bit. And there are several reasons we think it's justified, in the sense that it's one structure is really not feasible in these kinds of scenarios. It's also visually, having these smaller structures is less visually intrusive. If we were to have one structure, it would almost be, it's very difficult, almost feasibly impossible to have one structure. You would have ductwork and wires and connections trying to bridge and span very long distances. So it's costly, it's inefficient, and really just ultimately impractical. And then as it relates to this corridor itself, we're just looking for a small setback relief to allow for this to exist. But all building height requirements will be met, all setback requirements for the penthouse structures will be met, as will all green area requirements. And that is it. And again, I'm trying to be cognizant of time, so I hit the specifics, but as the commissioners alluded to, we are more than happy to answer any and all questions. So please, I open the floor.
Okay, thank you very much for that presentation. Would you mind taking your screen share down so we can get our community and commissioners back up on the screen? Thank you so much. So any comments, questions from commissioners?
Yeah, I'm happy to kick it off. I just want to say thank you to the team we've been corresponding over email for a few months now. Thank you for your presentation at the zoning committee. I found that helpful. One of the questions I asked there, and I should say too, that I think the technical requests that you're making in terms of the specific zoning relief are reasonable to me. I asked a question at the zoning meeting about affordable housing. I think under my understanding as a non-zoning layperson is that under regular circumstances, a project of this size would require a level of affordable housing. Could you speak to that, or what your plans are for affordable housing with respect to this project?
Sure, I'll start. Maybe Dave and Guy, you guys can hop in here too. So as this site is currently zoned, the D zone, there is no affordable housing requirement. Okay, so just first and foremost, there is some history to the site too that's worth mentioning as it relates to the providing of housing to the community and to the overall housing supply. And Guy, I'll let you go into that. But effectively, there was There was a 3.5 FAR requirement to provide housing on the site. Guy's team provided that across the street at the Meridian project. So we feel as a team, like in terms of contributing to the housing supply, we've already done that via these, they're called combined lot developments, as well as, providing, almost 500 new units to the overall supply of in the market.
That's a pretty good summary, Sean. This is Guy Stewart, Patrick, Commissioner. The history on the site goes back, long before I was alive, quite frankly. It used to be a car dealership the family built in 1929. We opened it September of 1929. How's that for timing? Nonetheless, here we are, almost 100 years later, and successive generations are trying to put this property back to use. And Sean's correct in that, back when this was a car lot, the adjacent square N515 to the northeast was support for the automobile services for many, many, many years. And when we moved it out of the city after the riots, it was an eyesore. And so really within the last 20 years, we've done what we needed to do to help bring life back to the city down here. I was sitting with Steve Cochran and OP with the Mount Vernon overlay, trying to articulate zoning overlays that would animate the streetscape and the retail that we were looking for, and trying to bring life back into the core of the city. This 7th Street was and 6th Street were big commercial districts way back when, and they lost that luster over the years. But nonetheless, as we were seeking to redevelop this site and the adjacent site, we took advantage of the housing overlay and a combined lot development. Before you could put a shovel in the ground, you were mandated to build housing as part of your development. And the efficiencies of the sites suggested that it would be better to put the housing and more housing than was required on square N515, which we did in 2 phases. Those 2 towers were part of the resolution and the meeting, more than meeting the mandated requirement for housing on the 2 blocks combined. And so that's what we did. And that freed us up to do what we would want to do on this site. It could be commercial. We failed a couple times at office buildings, not getting tenants. Maybe that's a blessing in disguise, but here we are now trying to bring life back into the city and remove a blight, in my mind, and putting into the tax rolls of the city in a way that's supportive of the community. And whether we do a hotel as part of this development, I think it would work well, both streetwise and animation, and work well with the project. But there's no certainty that we win that competition. So we've got 2 solutions here.
Okay, any other comments from commissioners? And before you go, Commissioner Nago, let me just note to the project team, there are some comments in the Q&A. If any of your team members want to go in there and just address any of them, we don't have to do them live in the call. So Commissioner Nago, go ahead.
Excuse me.
So to the team, we on behalf of my constituents, we are very happy that this lot is going to be redeveloped, because just for myself, and I rarely bring myself into the conversation, I have talked about this for 10 years. So I live for the day. I do not talk about this lot. And so as Patrick touched upon, we certainly understand what you have done in the past and what your present needs are. But, we would welcome, if at all possible, there can be some affordable housing, and we understand you are not committed to do that, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But it would be certainly welcome as a component if this is going to be 100% residential. There you go. But I am glad, Mr. Stewart and Bosser Properties, that you guys are at the helm of this, because as my bullet point, and I will say it again, always with these development, is that I am pleased because I know that if this project does go forward, it will be finished. And that is exciting for me, because nothing in my area practically gets done. So thank you.
Wait a minute. Didn't we build the
Except for 655. So no, wait, you were 655. But you guys didn't do anything in my area, Mr. Stewart.
Oh, well, okay, well.
That was across the street.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Any-
Stand corrected.
Any additional comments from commissioners? Okay, so just quickly in the Q&A, there are questions about condos versus rentals. Can you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, at the moment, it's contemplated to be all rental, no for sale condominiums.
Okay, and could you reiterate how many residential units you're proposing in both the hotel and non-hotel scenarios?
Yeah, it's around 550 in the non-hotel and about 489 in the hotel scheme.
Okay, great. And then another question about whether the kind of east-west passageway is intended to be like more of a public alley, or is it more like a service corridor specifically for vehicles accessing garage and loading dock?
The latter, it would be more of a service corridor.
Yeah, the Office of Planning really almost insists that, you know, you service these buildings through private alleys or, you know, not
Right.
from the street.
Yeah, and the nice thing about this, unlike across the street that Patrick is also working with, the entire property is around the loading dock, so it's going to be self-contained. It's going to be a sort of self-contained within your property.
You know, you can also, you know, Commissioner, you can do things to try to quiet, you know, a lot of these deliveries and things as a consequence of where they're, you know, it's kind of buried within the site.
Okay, and then there are a couple comments.
I can address the there's a question about I think congestion, street widths. So the one answer, excuse me, where'd it go?
Oh, sorry, I moved it into the answered section, so flip over there and then.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So it would not take away from the street widths. It would affect, what we're looking for is to increase the sidewalk width off the street. In other words, the street width would be maintained.
Fifth Street is a pretty narrow street, as Sean's point as it is, and,
Yeah.
and you know, because we do have an entrance on that east side of the project, giving us this additional setback does allow for more safe negotiation of the sidewalk, and also provides a measure of safety coming off the corner of that alley. You know, if you've got a peripheral vision, you've got a little more eyesight to be able to catch something coming out of that alley that's on 4 wheels or 2 wheels, what have you. You've got a moment of safety that is built in as part of this.
And you know, one other thing that came up in the chat or in the Q&A that maybe is also appropriate, is there any plan for, you know, if there's a queue of trucks to get to the loading dock where there might be a staging area? I know that there was already a staging area proposed for that block of Fifth Street that I believe the ANC chose not to support. So any thoughts about a staging of trucks that may have to wait to get to the loading dock?
Yeah, that's a good question. And so we're still in the process of working on our transportation demand plan. And that will certainly be part of it in terms of understanding truck flow. We will have dock masters, we will have people managing deliveries, you know, both for the retail and for the residents, and ultimately if there is a hotel. So those loading docks are 24/7 managed and manned. So I would say to be determined. The details are still being flushed out, but this is something that, you know, we're very accustomed to as both the Stewart Company and Boston Properties in terms of managing inflow and outflow.
Commissioner, it'd be my preference if we can manage it and design it properly, that, you know, all these, you know, Amazons and eBays and Ubers and DoorDashes and all this kind of stuff that accesses your building. And we'd like to be able to do that, you know, from a nice, you know, alley of sorts, and not just block the streets. You know, I've seen the mess that happens down at the wharf, and we want to try to avoid that.
Yeah, and carjackings. It would definitely reduce car theft if people who are dashing in to drop off a package can do it from a more private corridor than.
You're right.
Street. And also considering there's a bike lane on K Street that is often being blocked by traffic. So to give myself a break, we have a live question hand up, and anyone who's asked your question in the QA, if you want to ask it live, we can do that. I'm going to invite Mark R to talk. To ask a question.
Hi, it's great to be here. Thank you so much for being here, folks from Boston Properties. It's great to see that this lot is going to finally be developed. And we certainly appreciate your efforts in the past and recognize the need for housing in the city and the district in general. So my questions, I'm going to be very direct, relate to will you commit, or are you having conversations, or will you commit to having conversations with other DC agencies, including the mayor's office, the Office of Planning, the council, to discuss how affordable and equitable housing might be incorporated in your project?
You know, look, I'm sensitive to what the community is talking about in affordable housing, and it's probably a broader discussion to be had about societal issues having to resolve. It's really a societal problem about affordable housing. It's, I think personally, I've got opinions about how that could be done better rather than burdening a particular site with subsidizing affordable housing. If you think about it intellectually, when affordable housing is imposed on a site, you actually decrease the value of the site. You decrease the tax revenue to the city on the site. If you were thinking about it differently, if you were to maximize the value and then take some of those tax proceeds and put it to the housing fund and underwrite and use leverage for a low income housing tax credits or something like that, you would be better off, I believe. Society would be better off in carrying, the sacrificial burdens of trying to create housing for people who need it. I think it's I'm of a different mindset than certain people about how to resolve affordable housing, but that's one opinion that I have.
Thank you for that answer. And again, if anyone on the project team wants to dip into the Q&A, there are now 7 unanswered questions. And if you wanted to answer them in there versus bringing them all up individually, that would be helpful to get more.
Excuse me.
And then I'm going to go and ask one of the other ones about there's concerns about making sure that the access way is actually large enough for 2+ vehicles to go through, and also to ensure that the angles can be managed by large trucks coming and going. I don't know if you wanted to you can just add that to the list of design ideas, or if you wanted to address that, you're welcome to as well.
Yeah, sure. That will all, those are very good points. Those will all be worked out as we work into the details of the exact turning radiuses. We work with our traffic consultants to incorporate that.
And can you just remind everyone how much parking is in the plan, and how does that compare to the DDOT or the DC minimums?
Yeah, so we're in the early stages of working through with our traffic consultant, and we are coordinating with DDOT. Early stages, we're trying to set up a meeting with them. Without getting into too much, the early indications are that we're actually providing more than the DDOT required. So we are providing around 200 spaces, about 100 spaces per parking level. So I think this somewhat addressed, I know Commissioner Niagara, this came up before in terms of parking on the streets and overwhelming the neighborhood with visitors, et cetera. We're actually contemplating providing more than is required or recommended by DDOT.
Sure, and you'll welcome to the neighborhood. You'll hear some people that say it should have more parking, and you'll hear some people say that it should have less parking.
So maybe we're right in the middle.
I'm at the less parking camp. And then speaking of, there's a comment about the Capitol Bike Share Station that's currently located there, hoping that maybe it can be relocated, but also just thinking more generally about active transportation and whether or not you could try to ensure that there's maybe a good home on the K Street frontage for a bike share station.
Yeah, we'll be working through all of that with DDOT. We do contemplate having over 100 bike parking spaces inside the building, and then providing I think around early indications are around 20 racks themselves, the short-term racks around the site, street level.
Right, so that was okay. And then I'm going to give myself another break and invite Ms. Chris Hart to talk.
Sure. Thanks, Michael. I just want to say thanks to the team. And I did put a comment in the chat. Broadly speaking, I am very excited for this redevelopment and think, essentially when there's an opportunity almost by right like this, we should go for the housing supply. I do want to make 2 quick comments, though. I was a little troubled by the responses on affordable housing. I know you're not under an obligation to do so, but to the extent that you could work with the community to provide some units, I do think that would be something that would be appreciated. And also a little concerned about going beyond the minimum parking requirement. This is a very transit-rich neighborhood. I think we should all be working to reduce car use in the dense downtown corridor. So would strongly urge you to walk back from exceeding the minimum. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, and just trying to see if there's any other super compelling comments. And if you wanted to stay on and addressing any additional of these Q&A.
I can try to do that. Yeah, I'm trying to do.
No, I got it. There's three of you here and we're trying to multitask. I totally understand. Just, is there a potential date for when the project might be finished?
Yeah, so again, I'm going to caveat this to say that we're very early in the process and there are, numerous design and regulatory hurdles we need to get through, permitting being one of them. But if everything were to go to plan, we could potentially be starting somewhere towards the end of next year, beginning of 2024. Rough timeline would be around 24 months. So end of 26, roughly speaking, around that time. Again, please don't hold me to that. Those are the rough dates that I can provide.
Okay. So Mark R has his hand up again. I'm going to invite him to.
Can I ask a question before that?
Sure.
I'm just curious. This lot was also there was previously discussed that this lot might be developed as among other things, 1,000 car parking garage for a DC Baltimore maglev project that I think the ANC was fairly critical of. That project is caught up in the NEPA process, and I am skeptical that it will move forward. But have you, do you have control of the site, or do you have a path to site control in a way that we could be assured that we're getting some combination of residential housing and or hotels rather than a
I'll take that,
giant
Sean, I'll
parking
take
garage?
that answer. I'm not sure who asked the question, but my family has owned this site since, as I said, 1928. We own it in its entirety. And so we invited Boston Properties into a joint venture with us, gosh, maybe 2014, I think, Sean, something like that.
That's right.
Because at that time, they were preeminent office developers in the country, and having built the housing, across the street, across from City Vista, we wanted diversity, and we wanted to create, different kind of investment, and that didn't manifest. But to answer your question, we own the site that collectively the two companies, Stewart Investment Company and Boston Properties, and that's all you need to know. I don't mean that pejoratively. That's all that there is to tell you. That's it. We own it. Maglev doesn't have anything to do with it.
And so, Mr. Stewart, let me add on, because with the maglev, Alex was talking about the maglev train, that I was the one who alerted Mr. Stewart and said, did you know that your picture of your lot is in their PowerPoint? So he had no idea. So the mag, for everyone who doesn't know, that the maglev project that has a proposal out there that is kind of stuck in the state of Maryland at the moment, gave us a presentation now 2 years ago. Gosh, it seems so long ago. And they had pictured different sites around our area, and the main one was this lot to be a parking lot / an entrance. And they had actually not talked to Mr. Stewart at all, who I think at that time, might have been the only owner of the lot, not Boston. I can't remember.
Well,
but either way. So
I don't know if we were or not at that point. We didn't certainly weren't aware of maglev when Boston Properties came into the venture. It really caught both of us by surprise. And we've talked to those people, but we got to move on. We're going to build what we want to build, and if they're going to want to take it through eminent domain, well, then that's what they're going to have to do. But want to build an apartment building in a hotel. I think Boston Properties does too, or all residential. That's the way it pans out.
Yeah.
And then, sorry, one other quick comment, and this is more for the other commissioners. I learned through this process that the D zone, the downtown zone and Mount Vernon zone is excluded from the inclusionary zoning requirement. And if other commissioners are interested, I would be supportive of writing a letter to either Ward 2, Ward 6 commissioners and or the zoning commission supporting a zoning code change to require IZ units in the downtown D zones, especially as we're seeing more residential redevelopment in the downtown area. So maybe.
Can we bring
I'll
that
try
up
and move
at
something next
another
month.
meeting?
No, I just wanted to say that because there's been a lot of discussion about whether we have any leverage to extract affordable units in this property. I don't see that we do, but I think that there's something more basic that we should be pursuing with regards to a zoning regulation change.
So let's move on to the last comment, Mark.
So folks, again, so we do have, we have a limited amount of tools in our toolbox here in the district and elsewhere. So we have inclusionary zoning, and we try to incent developers to use that. That's one thing that you're offered. And the second, we have the trust fund. Those provide streams of financing for you that you can choose or not choose to incorporate in developing your plan. So that's the one thing to follow up to Alex. The other thing is, while it's very interesting to talk about these broader societal issues, I asked a very direct question. Are you open? Will you commit to having a conversation with officials from the mayor's office, the DC Council, other government agencies about the inclusion of affordable housing in your project? Yes or no?
We can talk, but we've already made our sacrifices in this site. We're happy to talk to people about the issue, but our plan is to move forward with market rate at this point.
And you talk about other housing that you develop, residential. I understand that, and that's appreciated. Do you have affordable housing at those sites also?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
We did it at 368th Street also with a grocery store downstairs, and we're looking at a significant component of affordable housing down at Buzzards Point and Capitol Gateway area.
Okay, that's not in this ANC.
No, but it's it's affordable housing.
Yeah. Okay. Again, we have a housing crisis, so I'm just trying to ask the question about. You'll have the conversation. So I'm hearing you say that you are open to conversation.
Yeah, sure, we'll talk.
Okay, that's great.
We've done it before. But you talked about incentives, and so the incentive is what is the incentive? That's
why we talk.
Yeah, because they're
okay.
right
Thank
now,
you. Thank
right
you.
now there isn't one.
Okay, thank you very much. And if there are no further comments, and again, the group can answer these other questions that are in the chat, but let's go ahead and move on. Do we have a motion from Commissioner Parley?
Yes, we do. So I move that ANC 6E support the zoning relief requests for 1001 6th Street Northwest, and that's BZA case 20832, and communicate that support to BZA.
And do we have a second?
I second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion about the motion. All in favor, vote by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
I heard Denise. Do we have Kevin?
Kevin.
I'm thinking about it.
Thinking about it. Okay.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. I'll go with this one.
okay, so we got 6 ayes. That leaves no room left for nays or abstentions. Thank you very much, project team, for coming out and sharing with us your project this evening, and look forward to hearing back from you in the future with any additional updates, public use permits, et cetera.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
Great. And now on to the Transportation Advisory Committee. Mr. Lopez, Commissioner Lopez, would you like to take the wheel?
Sure. So the TAC met on Tuesday of last week, and we considered 3 items that are will be moving today. The first is about an alleyway conversion from 2-way to 1-way. This alley is located in 6005 on the 600 block between New York Avenue and K Street. Let me just share my screen. This is an alley that divides, here's kind of a photo, it divides the AC Hotel with this commercial building. It is a from what we've received from a letter from some of the commercial tenants in this area. It's a heavily used alleyway. There's loading docks. It's also rather narrow, and consequently the delivery trucks have difficulty navigating. And I think there's actually maybe been some damage to the building by trucks trying to pass too closely. Obviously, Mount Vernon Triangle is also there's a lot of pedestrians, a lot of bicyclists, a lot of different types of road users trying to negotiate these small spaces. We've seen with the recent conversion of 4.5 Street, which is an alley nearby from 2-way to 1-way, that has some benefits to making traffic flow a little bit easier, and also reducing some of the congestion and allowing pedestrians to feel safer in these spaces. This request for this 2-way to 1-way conversion actually came via a number of commercial property owners, tenants, and representatives thereof to Commissioner Parlay, and they presented at the TAC last week. And the TAC found merit in the proposal and recommended that the ANC request that DDOT convert this alley from a 2-way to a 1-way southbound with the addition of traffic calming measures. Commissioner Parlay, did I capture that correctly? Is there anything you'd like to add to this topic?
Yeah, I think you did a wonderful job. The only thing I'll say is I think Allison Aldrich, who's I see in the attendees, was the person who presented. So I would welcome if she would like to come over and just sort of add anything that she'd like to add. And the other thing that I would say is that in the last 2 months, I've been putting out information about this proposal, asking for feedback. I haven't gotten any. And I think that's a little bit indicative of this alleyway is very much flanked, as Alex had mentioned, by the AC Hotel, by commercial. So this is very much focused on sort of the business stakeholder side more than the resident side, to the extent that there's no resident building flanking it. And so one thing I like about this particular proposal is that before coming to the ANC, sort of the business stakeholders got together and could agree on a plan or a request. And so that's been good from my perspective. But let me pause there, and if Allison wants to add anything, I would invite her to. And I don't know if there are others here from that from the requesters as well.
So Allison, you're welcome to unmute yourself. If you're interested in speaking, you're not obligated to. Okay, you're permitted to unmute yourself, I believe. And I can click this button to see if that makes a difference. Okay, let's try this approach. Is this working? How about now? And try it again. You are a panelist now, so can you try to unmute yourself, Allison? Okay, so I'm going to try to move you back out and then try to get you. I don't know what's going on over here.
I see her on participants now. I wonder if that's another, like if she's trying to log in from another location, because I see her in attendees now and I also see her as a panelist.
Let's try this. How about now?
Can you hear me?
There we go.
Yay.
Welcome.
Hi. Hi there. I've been listening and so thank you for having me. I just wanted to add that it is, been a safety concern for pedestrians and employees of the office building and restaurants and hotel that trucks that become trapped in this alley do have to back out onto the sidewalks. And without there being a crosswalk or speed bumps or signage, it does pose a threat to pedestrians.
Thanks for that comment. I mean, the one thing that I'll note is I'm very happy to see that it's one-way southbound. So because it crosses the bike lane. So the ability to have visibility on bikes and peds moving by as you're going out of the alley versus turning right or left into the alley, which might create a conflict with bikes and peds. So I'm happy to see that design configuration. Any other comments or feedback from the commissioners? And any additional
This
comments?
would be good. I walk down here too.
And any additional comments or feedback from the community members? If you're on the phone, dial *9. And hearing none, Commissioner Parley, do we have a motion?
Yep. I move that ANC 6E submit a letter to DDOT requesting the alleyway located at 655 K Street Northwest be converted to a one-way southbound, and that DDOT also add traffic calming measures as part of the alley conversion, and transmit that letter to DDOT.
And do we have a second?
A second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion about the motion. Hearing none, all in favor, vote by saying aye.
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 And do we have Kevin? Commissioner Rogers, do you have a vote on this item?
Aye. Aye.
Okay. All right, we were unanimous. So thank you very much for bringing this to us. Alex, what's next?
All right, next is a proposed resolution requesting that DDOT upgrade the bike lanes on Q Street and R Street to meet current safety standards. And I'll go ahead and share my screen. The bike lanes on Q Street and R Street form a couplet. They're both one-way streets, Q Street going east and R Street going west, and together they are an important east-west bike corridor. They're also one of the, I believe, one of the earliest bike lanes that were installed by DDOT in the district. As a result, they carry a lot of users, a lot of bicyclists, but the design is not what DDOT would put in place if they were designing it today. The bike lanes are not protected. They are very close to, if you're going down on R Street, which I live on, you have parked vehicles on your right that can very easily and do frequently open their doors into the path of bicyclists, causing crashes. You have, because it's not a protected bike lane, you have delivery drivers and other drivers double parking their vehicles on the bike lane, which creates issues where bicyclists have to merge into traffic, which creates dangerous situations. As we heard from presentations from DDOT recently on 9th Street and New Jersey Avenue, DDOT now prefers protected bike lanes, not just because they're safer, but also because they are they provide a lower stress biking experience, which encourages bike use from different types of riders that might not otherwise feel comfortable using these types of facilities. The last thing maybe one of the last things I'll say on this proposed project is that both Q Street and R Street are designated as, for this entire corridor that I have highlighted here, which is essentially between Massachusetts Avenue in DuPont and the Metropolitan Branch Trail in Eckington. This corridor and Q Street and R Street are both minor arterials. And minor arterial is a functional classification that DDOT uses in the Move DC plan, which DDOT adopted in, I think, December of last year. It says very explicitly that bike lanes on minor and major arterials should be designed as protected bike lanes. So what this resolution, and then one other thing I'll say is that this resolution was brought to the TAC by a group of residents who have been leading kind of a grassroots coalition requesting that DDOT take a look at these bike lanes and make a design and propose a design for protected bike lanes. And this group now has a petition out there that has the signature of over 1,000 district residents calling for these changes. The language of the resolution, which I circulated with the commissioners, kind of goes through a lot of this rationale and ultimately requests, these are just some stylistic edits, that the ANC 6E requests that DDOT study and publish for public comment designs for fully protected bike lanes on Q Street and R Street between Mass Ave and the Metropolitan Branch Trail, and that ANC 6E requests in its study that DDOT also include opportunities to calm traffic and improve transportation safety for all users on the project corridor. The piece of R Street and Q Street that we're talking about here is in 6001 and 6002. So Commissioner Eichler, if there's anything that you would like to add.
I would just note that, as a frequent user of both the Q and R Street lanes, I'm in full support of protection of them. Also noting that there was a recent, I believe it was in the spring, that someone was doored right there on the R Street lane near 9th. It was pretty severe injury, and anything that we can do to make it easier for our current cyclists to ride safely will permit even more cyclists of a variety of skills and abilities. And also bike lanes are really their mobility lanes. They can be used by scooters, they can be used by wheelchairs. So it really is, these are lanes for everyone to move safely and quickly around the city, and not just for sort of speed cyclists in their spandex. This is really a mobility options for families and for everyone else around. So I'm definitely in support of this resolution. And also just note that I will put in, well, there is a petition, a WABA petition. If you wanted to find it, you can Google it, or somebody can drop it into the Q&A.
One other thing I'll add is that ANC 60 is not the first mover here. In addition to the petition, resolutions have been passed supporting this idea from the ANC 2B, the DuPont Circle ANC, as well as ANC 2F, the Logan Circle ANC. So we are joining a movement, so to speak, rather than acting as a single voice.
Very good. Any comments from commissioners? And hearing none, any comments? Well, we have one hand up. Oh, sorry. Kevin, were you going to make a comment?
Yeah. Is it family friendly and accessible for all? You're talking about running another lane down the R Street and Q Street, correct?
We're talking,
as like we've been protesting this on K, is they gonna make it accessible lane and family friendly? Because so far the lanes has been a disaster. So that's my views on it. And I'd like to get with somebody to talk about this more when we have some time. Thank you.
Kevin, I'd be happy to follow up with you offline on this or anything else. But the request is there's no design at this stage. So the request is that DDOT study and publish designs for protected bike lane. Anything, I assume that anything that gets studied and presented we would have an opportunity to comment and pay careful attention to any accessibility concerns that might arise.
Great. And then we have one hand raised. I'm going to allow Richard to talk. Welcome, Richard.
Yes, good evening. I actually made the presentation to your transportation subcommittee, so I wanted to follow up and just say that indeed ANC 2B and ANC 2F have unanimously passed resolutions similar in nature to the 6E resolution. There are very clear reasons why making protected lanes on Q&R Street is a good idea. One is that injuries are occurring at a rate of 1 per week in this corridor along the stretch that was described in the map. This east-west corridor would connect at least 6 and maybe 7 north-south lanes, including 9th Street, including New Jersey Avenue, and would actually complete a big part of the downtown network or midtown network within the district, enabling people like me who live in Ward 2 to bicycle over to Ward 6 and go shopping and go to your restaurants and visit friends and neighbors. So I think this is overall a great idea, and commend the commission for taking this action. Thank you.
Thank you for that comment. Any additional feedback from the community? And hearing none, do we have a motion?
Yes, I move that ANC 6E request the DDOT study and publish for public comment designs for fully protected bike lanes on Q Street Northwest and R Street Northwest between Massachusetts Avenue Northwest and the Metropolitan Branch Trail. And further, that ANC 6E request that in the study, DDOT include opportunities to calm traffic and improve transportation safety for all users along the project corridor, and that this letter be communicated to DDOT.
And do I have a second?
I second.
Okay, moved and seconded. All in favor? Sorry, is there any discussion about the motion? All in favor, vote by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Yeah, and I hear Denise. Okay, it's unanimous. Thank you very much for your votes there. That's 6 of us. And on to item 17, yet another bicycle corridor.
Okay, so this is going to sound somewhat familiar because it is on purpose. Again, 11th Street is one of those early bike lanes that were designed by DDOT. And 11th Street, at least between Pennsylvania Avenue and Rhode Island Avenue, is classified as a minor arterial, which if DDOT were to design it today, they would, by their Move DC design criteria, would need to design as a protected lane. Again, this 11th Street corridor is an important one for bicyclists. It connects a lot of different, it's north-south, it connects to a lot of different east-west bike facilities, and similar to the Q&R Street proposal, if ANC 6E adopted this resolution, we would not be acting alone. There are also similar resolutions coming out of ANC that have been adopted, I believe, unanimously in ANC 1A, ANC 1B, and ANC 2F. This resolution focuses on 11th Street between Pennsylvania Avenue and Spring Road Northwest. And the request is similar to the previous resolution, that ANC 6E requests that DDOT study and publish for public comments designed for a fully protected bike lane on 11th Street between Pennsylvania Avenue and Spring Road, and that further DDOT should study traffic calming options for this corridor.
Okay, thank you for that. And then do we have any comments from the commissioners on the 11th Street corridor? And any comments from the community? And hearing none, then as the rep for 6001, I will be happy to make the motion that we draft with pass a resolution requesting that DDOT study the conversion of the unprotected bike lanes on 11th Street Northwest to protected bike lanes. And can I get a second?
I second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion about the motion?
Friendly amendment, and that ANC also, ANC 60 also request that DDOT study opportunities for traffic calming on the corridor as well.
Friendly amendment accepted. Moved, seconded, and amended. All in favor, vote by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Did we get Denise on that?
Yes.
Okay, so we've
Yes,
got
said aye.
unanimous. Great, thank you. Just, you and Kevin said so at the same time. I couldn't quite differentiate between the two of you. So we've got another unanimous support for bike lane conversion from unprotected to protected. And that it brings us to the end of item 17. Commissioner Nigro.
I have something to bring up because this has to do with transportation and what the committee has decided. So Alex and all the other commissioners, I think, received the same email from Carlos Gray. And so he would like to talk to us briefly about the New Jersey Avenue Road diet and the elimination of the parking spaces, even though we had voted for support of this project. Unfortunately, my greatest fear has come true that now there are further concerns about the loss of parking. So if Mr. Carlos can just talk for a second to us, and I have advised him that, basically it's up with, he can talk to the director and all that, and maybe there could be some sort of compromise. But go ahead, Mr. Carlos or Mr. Gray. You have to unmute yourself.
Welcome.
Good evening, and thank you everyone for taking the time to listen. I live in the 1700 block of New Jersey Avenue between R Street and Rhode Island Avenue. I, along with many of my neighbors, were unaware of the changes that are underway from the Diet Lane project on New Jersey Avenue. Our main concerns are the loss of parking. We've essentially had approximately 12 to 13 parking spaces just in that block between R Street and New Jersey, R Street and Rhode Island Avenue eliminated. We've been experiencing for years a significant scarcity in parking in this neighborhood, especially around here. And that loss of parking is just a tremendous negative impact on those of us who have lived here for many, many, many years. So, I've door knocked and, talked with my neighbors along New Jersey Avenue, with ANC commissioners, and, the numbers are growing, rapidly in terms of those who just weren't aware of, what was taking place. And I had an opportunity to meet with Alex on Saturday with a neighbor of mine, Tony. We talked about a possible compromise in terms of the design. I'm a cyclist myself. On nice days, I'll typically ride 8 miles a day. So I appreciate, the safe passageways that are, being pushed forward through the city and through the committee here. However, we feel that, this particular street, New Jersey Avenue, would be one of the very, very, very few streets in the city of Washington that would have 2 bike lanes on one street. And we think that a great compromise, could possibly be 1 bike lane on New Jersey Avenue, restoring, the parking on the west side of New Jersey Avenue. We get the bike lane on, on the east side of New Jersey Avenue. And we also address some of the parking that's been eliminated from the extension of the Metro bus area, which is just I mean, it is enormous right now. And, we also talked about relocating a bus stop that's on the west side of New Jersey Avenue, just south of the entrance to a gas station, and, having that, as placed in the south of our street. Our major concern also is the density, along our street between New Jersey Avenue and 5th Street, that is coming from the new stacked townhomes, the apartment building that's being built over there, that will bring new residents in large numbers, along with, in our neighborhood, we have to consistently compete for parking on Thursday nights through Sundays for, residents who don't necessarily live in the neighborhood coming to this area wanting to entertain themselves in Shaw or U Street or 14th Street. And they'll park their cars, over here, catch an Uber or take a scooter. So it becomes a major inconvenience for us to try to fight, to find parking, and to remove 12 to 13 spaces of parking is just, it's just too much. So, I've reached out to DDOT. I've reached out to Director Everett. I've reached out to Will. I believe his last name is Hansmith. I received some feedback from them today. They are preparing a response. And I've, again, talked to neighbors and talked to ANC commissioners. I spoke last night at the Bates Civic Association meeting, but we weren't aware of these changes and we object to these changes. So we would like to halt the project, temporarily to discuss an alternative plan and, kind of talk through, a compromise, where the neighborhood can get a bike lane, and we can get some of our parking back. So. Thank you.
Thank you for that feedback.
Yeah.
So just, I'll go ahead and just read this comment that came in through the Q&A. Putting my voice out there as a nearby resident, I'm thrilled about the New Jersey road diet. Such a transit-rich central area. The loss of parking seems like just part of the road growing up to become a mature place. Walking along the street the other day, it occurred to me for the very first time that I might actually want to live on New Jersey post-diet. So hopefully my view and Carlos's will cancel each other out. So I appreciate your input. This project was supported by the ANC, and other than pursuing a route to follow up with DDOT, I'm not sure what we can do to support you at this time.
Carlos, thanks for again coming on and talking with me the other day. As I said, I do these types of projects. Often they're installed and then there are iterative improvements over time, as we've obviously seen with the K Street Northwest protected bike lane, which is vastly better today than it was when it was first installed. So I do intend to host a meeting with DDOT and residents and bike lane users once the project is completed and a certain period of time has gone by, to see how it's working and see how it's not working, to see if there's anything that we need to change around the edges to improve operations. And your neighbors are of course welcome to attend that meeting.
I appreciate that. And you communicated that to me before, that we should just continue to move forward with the project completed, and then, we can have an opportunity to try to reverse, some of the parking issues that we have. I don't think that's a proper course of action. I think we should halt the project right now so that my neighbors and I can have a voice at the table before we move forward with anything else. Because once that project is completed, as you know, it will become incredibly hard for the project to be reversed in any fashion. So, since we live on New Jersey Avenue, my neighbors and I think we should have a voice at the table.
Thank you for that comment. Any additional comments from the commissioners? Or from, yeah, Kevin.
Mr. Gray, Carlos, I've sympathized with you and I understand everything what you're talking about because we also lost our parking spaces. But we can support you, not the ANC, Coalition for Bikes. If you want to get with our organization, feel free to take my number down, 202-270-6494, and we can discuss it. Thank you.
Okay. Let's go ahead and move on to the next agenda item. Thank you very much.
It's in me.
It is on tonight's item 18.
Treasurer Nigro, here I go. Okay, so we don't have a treasury report, but we can talk about, and I'm gonna get this all together, everyone, so trust me, please have good faith. But let's talk about now, Michael, we had discussed a little bit that we don't need to actually do the motions for the checks. What did we discuss?
We did. We only have to approve expenses if they are not in the budget.
So let's talk through this. So the Zoom, my paper copies of the agenda, and Karen's fee, we don't have to do this anymore.
They are all in the budget.
Okay.
Are we sure about that? Because didn't you just receive an email from somebody at, I don't know, some financial office requesting minutes where we approved expenses?
That was a grant, wasn't that?
That was a grant thing, and I've got that info. They got a response back.
That was a grant thing.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe I misread that.
So I mean, it wouldn't hurt. I mean, we've
only been doing it for years.
We've been doing it for years, and we know what they are, and we know the numbers. So we could also just, I mean, we don't have to do each one
No big
individually.
deal.
We just put them together as a package and sign off on it. But do we have a treasurer's report to review?
No.
Okay, so we can move on from item 18 to item 19, which is approval of expenses.
Well, Frank gave me, but I think that we talked about it before. There's nothing new.
There are the quarterly reports, but then there's also just, general treasurer reports.
Okay, well, once I get it together this week with Dawn.
You just got the role like earlier in the meeting, so we can't have expected you to actually have like prepared anything. Like, you couldn't like tune out of the meeting and then sort of.
No.
So I'm fine to kind of skip past any formal
And if we need,
report from our treasurer.
So anything that comes, once I get in line with Dawn, then I'll just push it out to you guys, and so we'll make sure we're all on the same page for the next meeting.
Sounds good.
Okay.
So do we want to approve our expenses?
Yep. We have an expense for the paper copies I give out of the agenda, that's $34.13. Karen's fee, Karen, are you still $250? Yes, okay. Karen's fee for her note minute taking is $250, and then Michael's fee for the Zoom is $99.63.
Correct.
Okay. Anything else? Any other expenses, commissioners? Nope. Okay. Okay, I move that I can't do this for myself.
No, we have to.
Okay.
We don't have enough votes to.
All right, sorry.
Roll them all
Sorry.
together.
All right.
We won't be signing checks for ourselves, but
yes.
we will.
So Alex is going to be added on to the check signing too. So hopefully we get that resolved. Do you hear that, Alex?
Oh, that's a new process. Is it? Yeah. Unless you want to step down as vice chair.
No, you have to have that many.
No, she's already a signature.
Yeah.
On vice chair. So
you have to be added.
We need 2
It has
signatures
to be
per
3
check.
people?
We need 2 signatures per check, and you can't sign a check to yourself. So, so if Rochelle submits expenses, we need 2 other people to sign the check that goes to Rochelle.
And it's frowned upon and all this type of, so, and plus if something happens to Michael or I, we've got to have
So either Rochelle stops making photocopies, so she stops submitting expenses, so then she doesn't have to sign her own check, or we have to add another signatory on the account
And for safety, we should have, because something happens to one of us.
for safety. And I know
Hello.
it's only a couple of months left before the term is over, and it seems like
Anything can happen.
it seems like a lot of work to do between now and then for this
Yeah,
purpose. But
I mean, we should talk about that. Yeah, about how we get. So I have
That's
to get
it.
on the bank account.
You
Yeah.
have to be on the bank account.
Okay.
We don't really, I mean, yeah.
I mean, that's fine. I just don't know I don't know how what that entails.
unless somebody else wants to be treasurer, Patrick, for a couple months, so then we could add Patrick instead of Rochelle, and then I'm just saying, like, let's put all the options in. No, we already have
Somebody
a new
else wants to be secretary.
we have a
I'm
new
just kidding.
treasurer.
No, we can move on.
No,
yeah.
that is actually another option too. I mean, because it's just the officers that are for the
I'm being facetious. I'm happy to do whatever. it
okay,
takes to
it's not
make
that big a
copies.
deal. It's just,
Yeah.
you just sign away. So no big deal. Okay, I move that ANC 6E, how did Frank phrase this?
Approve the expense.
Okay, sorry.
Approve the following expenses.
Okay, ANC 60, approve the following expenses, first being for myself for paper copies of the agenda for $34.13, for Karen for her minute taking of $250, and for Michael for the Zoom cost of $99.63.
I will choose not to second that because I am receiving a check. So as someone who's not.
I will
receiving-
second.
Okay, there we go. Moved and seconded. Further discussion, all in favor by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, I think I saw everyone, including Denise and Kevin. So that is all 6 of us. Great. There we go. And then that's it. Thank you very much for your service, Madam Secretary. Sorry, and no, not Madam Secretary, Madam Treasurer. I'm getting myself so confused. Anyway, on to announcements. Do we have any announcements from commissioners?
I have an announcement.
I have an announcement.
Okay, let's go. Let's start with Commissioner Lopez.
Thank you. Let's see. So on, unfortunately on September 26th, there was a crash at the intersection of 6th and Q Northwest, where a Seton Elementary parent and student were hit by a driver turning right. And the student and parent thankfully appear not to be injured, but as a consequence to this happening, I am hosting a traffic safety walkthrough with DDOT and Seton Elementary parents, as well as neighborhood residents on Tuesday, October 1st at 8 a.m. And we will be meeting at the intersection of 6th and Q Street Northwest, where the crash occurred.
Could you reiterate the date, please?
Yeah, what was that?
Tuesday, October 11th at 8
Oh.
a.m., which corresponds to when a huge volume of parents and students are crossing 6th Street, taking kids to and from Seton and Garrison and Kip, and so hoping to get some safer conditions in that area from DDOT.
Thank you for that. And Commissioner Blackson.
I wanted to announce to the 6E community that I'm having a community engagement event at Walker Jones Educational Campus, 1125 New Jersey Avenue, on the field this Saturday, October the 8th, from 1 to 5 p.m. There will be game trucks, face painting, resources for employment and job training, assistance with utilities, and other agencies and nonprofits there. So the community, come on out and enjoy yourself, free food and refreshments, book bag giveaway, and things of that nature.
Hey, Denise, did you make a flyer or something? Did you make like something I can put out? Okay, so could you send that? I'll put it on my social media.
Thank you.
And I'll stop by.
All right. See you then.
Any other comments from commissioners, announcements? Okay, and hearing none, any community announcements, feel free to raise your hand. If you're on the phone, dial *9. opportunity for additional announcements from the community. And hearing none, let us move on to the next meeting announcement, which has recently been fixed on the agenda. The next meeting of ANC 6E is Tuesday, November 1st, and that will be at our same bat time of 6:30 p.m. And as such, the committee meetings will be the week before, which will now also be in the last week of October. So we look forward to seeing everyone next month and at the end of this month for some committee meetings. And without any further ado, I will move to adjourn our October meeting. If I can get a second.
Second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Didn't get Kevin on that maybe, but it's okay. We are adjourned. Thank everyone. Thank you, everyone.
Bye, take care. Stay
Bye.
safe.
Good night.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks.
Happy
Bye-bye.
Halloween.